Welcome to the Cincy Postcast presented by Lasik.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Streetside Brewery. You know Streetside, you love Streetside, and if you don't love Streetside, it's probably because you haven't tried Streetside. And folks, what are you waiting for? Streetside is a local neighborhood brewery located in the heart of Columbia, Tusculum. It's a fantastic place to gather with friends, watch a match, or just have a quick one after work. My friend Justin was in town from Miami this week. Don't worry, he's not a Messi fan. He's cool like that. And Streetside was on our list of places to go so that he could get the full experience too. You've got a great selection of rotating beers on tap and some fantastic events as well. It's the home of Fulham FC's supporters for Premier League action and an official FC Cincinnati pub partner. There are events going on throughout the calendar year. Whiskey Wednesdays, Trivia Thursdays, and beer tapping events happening throughout the year. Just in April alone, we've got Speak of the Devil Day happening on April 12th and Broad Day happening on when else? 4/20. To get more information and plan your visit, you can go to them on the web at streetsidebrewery.com. Streetside Brewery. If it's not your favorite yet, maybe you're just wrong. Oh, and we've got a very special episode of the show for you today. The Cincy Postcast presents Carter and the Chief. Yes, that's right. FC Cincinnati's own Carter Chapley joins the show with me to recap the FC's thrilling 2-1 victory over Nashville SC. We break down all the big moments, from Evander's absolute beauty of a free kick to Roman Celentano's heroics in goal. Then, we take a step back and look at what the state of this team is from his perspective, covering the team day in and day out. Just how much did the chaotic preseason impact this team? How rough was the international travel? And just how close did he come to being kidnapped in Honduras? Oh yeah, you gotta hear that story. Finally, in segment 3, we have on Mark Szwejkowski, Shwy from Jim Trace and the Makers, to give his perspective as a Cincinnati outsider on what it is that makes Cincinnati iconic, in spite of what Variety would have you believe. It's a packed show because, damn it, someone's got to work while Kevin and Grayson are off having fun. You ready? All right, hit it. And joining me to talk about all of that and more, yes, it's just me, is the one, the only, Carter Chapley. You read him on FCCincinnati.com. You love his work. You trust his insights from the press box and on the social media apps on game day. It's a very special episode of the Postcast. It's the debut episode of the Carter and Chief show. Carter, how are you doing tonight?
You know, I'm great because we're coming on after a win, which always makes things so much better. Though it's impossible not to note that your fellow co-hosts are there for the losses and not there for the wins. So I'll make that point off the top. Noted.
Yeah. Many people are noting that, Grayson and Kevin have a lot to say after losses. Here we find ourselves after one of the biggest, if not the biggest win of the year for FC Cincinnati, a road win on the road in Nashville. And I think that what we're going to find over the course of this episode is they don't have a thing to say. They will not be adding one word to this conversation tonight.
So I was hoping maybe we could split up their duties a little bit. Like, I'll do the Grayson thing by drawing out a thought, and then I'll ask him about where the best skiing is in Vail. And then you can do Kevin and live in Anderson or something.
Yeah. Or you can casually name drop all of the cool places you've been to ski and all of the cool people that you've seen, while the rest was peons or, debating over what to order at Gold Star and whatnot. That's always a good pro move, too.
Right.
That really makes the show relatable to the listeners, I think.
I think it's a good opportunity for me to talk about all the summer tourism I'll be doing, like a trip to D.C. in 2 weeks. and then a trip to wherever's next that FC Cincinnati plays.
It's conveniently located along all of the MLS Eastern Conference teams that we will be seeing over the course of the year. It's funny, too, how we're here. Nashville would say this is a big rivalry, too. They're not here for our so-called rivalry. I don't understand. Maybe they're
So-called.
Maybe they're telling us all we need to know about the rivalry status here by not even being here for this show. If it was truly a rivalry, you would think they would have moved heaven and earth to make sure they were available to podcast tonight. By their not being here, I think they're saying all we need to say about how FC Cincinnati feels about, and the FC Cincinnati community writ large feels about what happened last night in terms of rivalry status.
I will say, funny enough, that I'll give my first peek behind the curtain today is that 2 years ago, ahead of the 24 season, I wrote the script and constructed the murder board that was the schedule release in preseason, and we were really debating on what we were going to identify for every team, and it was well, what can you do for Nashville that's interesting, but also not just a play on something like a country music star or something like that. How can you actually make this interesting? And it was it kind of came up that well, Pat said it's not a rivalry, in a press conference. so you kind of there's nothing else to do there.
Right now, it's
he said it. I feel pretty good about putting that out in a piece of content. So since then, that's kind of been my guiding light of until it's said out loud by someone higher up than me, I can abide by the rivalry exists formally with Columbus Crew, informally other places, but specifically not Nashville.
It's funny how that should be a thing. I think teams should have this. When you go through the Wikipedia page, who's the rivalry and who specifically are we not rivals with? Who are the teams where it's no, we just don't even bother with these people one way or the other. And I think that would have the opportunity to create some tremendous humor, especially around other sports as well. It would be great just to list, you're following a college basketball team and it's Xavier University, rivalries. Yeah, we're definitely rivals with the University of Cincinnati, but specifically not Dayton anymore. Not in our league anymore. We don't care. Not important. And then just watch how other people get apoplectic when you have declared them to be a not rival. I think that that would truly drive sports narratives to the next level if we're not only debating about what is, but also what we're denying other people as well.
Well, it introduces the concept of enemy of my enemy is my friend. So if we're not rivals, if FC Cincinnati are not rivals with Nashville, and someone else is rivals with Nashville, does that make you friends with the third party, right? Does it introduce the concept of a degrees of separation friendship that you can align yourself with? I don't know. It's an interesting thought for the Wikipedia page. Xavier is distinctly not rivals with Dayton, but SLU is distinctly rivals with Dayton. Does that make Xavier and SLU friends? I would propose it might.
Right. Or is it the fact that if you're only friends with them if you are also rivals, where that by taking their side, you're also, you're
commenting, commenting on it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not rivals, then maybe in this situation you root for Dayton because it's well, we're not rivals, so we kind of hope that you win.
Who would care?
We hope that you win because it's good for the area. It's good for the area.
The locals.
Yeah. We enjoy it when other people are having fun.
A rising tide lifts
all boats. And that would be more infuriating, I think, because then it's no, we want you to hate us. It's no. We're okay with you doing this. This is exciting. That's good for you guys up there. It's good. It's neat. It's cool. I'm glad you have this.
It'd be like if Indianapolis introduced an MLS team, and it would be well, where would that land? And it's well, not Nashville. That's definitely not Nashville's rivals. So who are they?
Well, no, then you could be really infuriating because Indianapolis would want to be rivals with Cincinnati.
Right.
But we already have Columbus, and Columbus would say we already have Cincinnati. So what we could do is we could do the Animal House bit where it's well, I mean, Nashville's thirsty for a rival, and you need a rival. Yeah. So why don't you kids go play off over here and see if you end up hating each other?
The Trillium Cup of 2007 MLS, where Toronto and Columbus were we don't know what to do with you guys. So you guys are the rivalry week this week.
It always reminds me of the greatest rivalry that isn't a rivalry in college sports, and that's the civil conflict. Are you familiar?
I like that one. Yeah.
Where I think it was Bob Diaco maybe at the University of Central Florida, or I think it was Diaco at Central Florida. But either way,
that sounds right.
Central Florida decided that they were going to be rivals with the University of Connecticut. and
That's
they
great.
made a trophy. They had a thing in their locker room counting down to the Connecticut game. And Connecticut, every time they were asked, was like, "No, we do not recognize this as a rivalry game. We don't care." And the response from Central Florida was, "Well, they don't get to tell us if we're rivals with them. Like, rivalry can
Right.
be a one-way street. Hate can go one direction." And then it ended when Connecticut won the trophy and just didn't take it with them, and it just left on the field because they
Civil
didn't care.
conflict. They still do that now, though, right? Like they still bill it. They, I'm pretty sure.
I think it's got.
Or do we as like a Twitter community, like does Twitter acknowledge it, but the schools don't? That might be
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
think that's
thinking
what it is, and I think it's it might have reached the point now where like it's funny
of.
enough that the people now involved acknowledge it as we're acknowledging this as a rivalry, in so much as that it's really funny somebody tried to make it a rivalry, and now it is just a. It's there for the lulls, it's there for the memes, and there for the vibes only, I think. But you wouldn't know that on this match. I don't know. I know that you're busy watching the match in person, so you don't get to experience the Apple TV with the rest of us. The Apple TV announcers, very keen to point out this was a rivalry at every opportunity. So I don't know if you guys get messages from the league office of, hype this up or anything like that. But there was definitely an agenda in the broadcast that you might find when you go back and watch this on the television.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about it after the fact because my father, who is now a huge FC Cincinnati fan, he likes to send me his in-game thoughts. Typically that's something to do with like whatever the broadcast is doing. Like he was very keen to point out that like I think it was in the Tigres match in Mexico that they were calling Luka Yuya, and he was like, "That's not Yuya. I know Yuya Kubo. That's not Yuya Kubo." And like so he likes to give me that, but he's just like rivalry. Didn't know that. And I was like, "Yeah, that's people do say that." And so he texted me a lot about that. But I've never received a message from the league to hype up a specific game. I don't know if Apple does, but I do know they do get like contextual meetings with coaches. So like if they feel like maybe one side of it says it is, or they're hearing from one side it is, then who's to say?
Back up a second. How much would it cost to get a live cam on Mr. Chapley watching a game now? That would be tremendous.
I've thought about making this like a feature in the game story, where I just like pull my dad's like whatever the message he sends me is, and then like put it at the bottom of being like Carter's dad's thoughts. And it was this one was just Roman with a bunch of like what else do we have here from last week? We'll make this a Postcast exclusive here.
Yes.
This is post Atlanta draw. His comment was lots of positives. Evander is one for sure. His ball handling will make the fans move on from whatever came before. The goals don't hurt though. I think that was one of Obi's best games. Good second half for Yuya and Pavel, and Nick back is a solid ad. Put the rest of the group out there, including Matt, and it's a different game. Take a point, keep your head up for Nashville. And I was like, wow, what a review. Like, what a review.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
No notes on this. This is great.
Good guy. Yeah, very funny.
This is good. We may have to get him on the Postcast at some point, but this is outstanding content right here.
He would love that. He'll be in Toronto. I know that. He'll be they come to the Toronto game every year and wear the Drunk to Juvent kit and have to explain. Yeah, it's very funny.
That may need to be a field trip we all make at some point to do an away game and like have like sit next to your father just to get his live commentary as this game goes along.
Mm-hmm. So he feels a real kinship with head coach Pat Noonan. Like I don't know why that, but he feels like a real kinship with like I like the way he thinks, and I'm like you don't know him, and he's like but I like him, and I'm like yeah me too,
right?
Me too.
It's like I like the way he thinks. From the distance I am watching this from right here, this is awesome.
He's very pensive, yeah,
and always seems like he's angry at all times, which I also approve as well. So we have our not rivalry game happening last night. The lineups come out before the match starts. We always like to start with the lineups here. And in this match, Pat Noonan, some unavailability. We had Kevin Denke coming back from international duty over in Africa. We had Teenage Hidebi, who was over getting his paperwork situated as well to get his green card. Good on him for making that happen. but still not available for selection in this match. So the lineup we end up getting is it's our traditional back three at the start with Flores, Robinson, and Haglund making the back three. Pavel Buka on the left, DeAndre Yedlin on the right. Or I'm sorry, Lucas Engel on the left, Pavel Buka on the right, or Yedlin on the right. Buka and Woboto in the middle. Evander up top as the attacking midfielder with a striker duo of Sergio Santos and Luca Orishano. What did you make of the lineup when it dropped? I know that this seemed like the obvious choice of personnel given who Noonan had available for selection in this match. There was some thought that maybe Denke goes immediately back into the lineup, but I've always been of the mind that Pat Noonan is nothing if not consistent, and Pat Noonan's preference is if you're not there for a full week of training ahead of the match, you usually start the match on the bench and you come in as a substitute.
Usually, yeah, especially if it's your away for whatever reason, or you're coming back from injury, it's almost always he's gonna bring you on as a reserve. He made clear in the post game press conference though that like Kevin was rearing to go. Like Kevin he's like he's gassed up and ready to go, and the coaching staff made an executive decision to put the lineup out they did, which I thought was interesting, because they'd mentioned earlier in the week that Kevin is the kind of guy who they know they have to they're never going to have a problem with him wanting to play more games, right? Like he takes care of his body better than just about anyone like you can think of. Certainly no one does it better, but I'm sure there are people who do as well. But like he's very serious about that kind of thing, so you can trust him in terms of like if he says he's ready to go, he's done the work to like do the recovery, to take care of himself, to get back. But I think it's fair to like play it cautious in a situation where like, for example, after such a long trip, like sometimes players do need to be reined in. And it worked out for the best. It worked out for the best, but I think it's an interesting part of it. The back three, I think that was probably the most comfortable they had, the most experience they have, especially with what they've done historically. But that's it. I mean, that's the lineup, right? We've now seen what the lineup looks like and what they're willing to flex in and out to, and I wasn't overly surprised with the lineup, to be completely honest. Nothing caught me by surprise.
No. The only part that'll be interesting is obviously Denke is back. He doesn't have any absences that are projected for the short term, near term right now, and he looks like he's locked on as that. I mean, he obviously is the big money signing, but beyond that, he absolutely looks the part thus far. The only part to this lineup that was interesting to me is that I did wonder a little bit whether or not Corey Baird might get the nod up top over Sergio Santos, especially because it feels a little bit like that Santos in a starting role simply doesn't offer you at times as much of it doesn't work as well for what Santos is built to do as a starter versus Santos coming on later on when he can make a little bit better use of his speed and physicality against, players that already have 60 to 70 minutes of wear and tear on the legs. But it's pretty clear right now that there's a pecking order in the striker room, and Sergio Santos is that first option when Noonan is looking for a replacement when Denke can't go for one reason or another. But I am interested.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that because I think like the short sample size we have does say that he's the first guy up. I do think and we can now look in retrospect to what happened when the lineup comes out. I think that's certainly fair to suggest. We do know that Yuya Kubo is not available.
Yes.
Right. Like so that is someone that he's been comfortable using as a primary striker, especially last year when the things weren't really going the way you wanted to with the number 9. But also I think we can also look in hindsight and go, Pat's kind of forecasting what the rest of the game is going to look like and who is going to be 90-minute fit. And he knows that he can use Corey, particularly without Yuya, as a wingback at times. And maybe he's trying to hold on to that card, knowing it might be possible that might be needed to. And whereas Sergio, you can kind of run him out there. He's a more like-for-like striker with Kevin than Corey is.
Right.
I think Corey has a lot of skills in what he does specifically, but like he's not, especially when you're playing with a strike partner of like Luca and let's say Corey in this case. Sergio provides something very different and it mixes up those looks.
Yeah.
I think for now though, it's pretty clear that like Sergio's going to get the spot first.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was going to bring this up as we got into the second half, but this is a good spot to put this in.
Mhm.
It's very interesting to me with Corey Baird specifically that, as best I can tell from looking at his play history, he has been a striker and a locked-on striker for the majority of his professional career. It is very interesting how this coaching staff has found a new skill set for him that I don't know that a lot of us were anticipating that he was going to have the ability to do and ability to use. He comes on later in this game for Miles Robinson and ends up playing out as a wingback and playing as a little more of an advanced wingback, an attacking wingback, as they went for the win in this game.
Yeah.
Has that surprised you a little bit, like how, as Corey Baird's FC Cincinnati career has moved forward, that, obviously there was some growing pains with him as a striker last year, and he, I was critical. But in terms of his willingness to do just about anything for this club, and the minutes he's logged out at wingback have looked shockingly good for a player who, as best I can tell, didn't have a lot of experience playing out in that position.
Yeah, I mean, the surprise by his willingness is not surprising.
The surprise,
having gotten to know him a little bit over the last year and a bit, that's not surprising at all. I do think it's an interesting conversation about like what does the wingback in the Pat Noonan system need to do, and in a lot of ways we've seen that it's offensive players who have a quickness, a work rate, who have the ability to shoot, essentially, to have the ball at their feet and be dangerous in the box, have been the most effective wingbacks for Pat Noonan. Like Luka did it so well that they moved him to strike. They moved him to attacking midfield or striker. Right? Alvaro did it so well that he became an MLS All-Star because of it. Right? Like, so I think you can kind of see it's not exactly the same because I think Alvaro and Luka had different specific skills, and DeAndre to a certain extent is in this mold of like guy who crashes in at the back post and understands how to play that role pretty well. But I think you can kind of see that like there is a skill set there that makes the conversion to wingback kind of interesting. And when it happened last year for the first time, I'm trying to remember when it happened for the first time. It was curious, but now that you've seen it, it's kind of like, I kind of get it, like where he fits into that with his work, especially I think it's particularly with his work rate, with his willingness to run and his ability to do so. And I think it's adapting to rather than, having to do it full field, but
right.
It makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it also helps him a little bit that like most of the time when he's been asked to do it, it's in later match situations, so he isn't being asked to both sides at 100% energy level, where I think that there may be a speed issue a little bit, and I think that's mitigated by how he's deployed and at what times in the match he's deployed, where he's either going against players who are slightly more fatigued, or if they've been subbed off, someone who's more than likely a less talented player than the person who he's going up against. But that's the lineup that comes out. This match really doesn't have a ton of fireworks initially. There's a little bit of an initial flurry by FC Cincinnati out of the gate. Nashville weathers that pretty well. Nashville, a team that it should be pointed out that even with the managerial change that they've experienced, this is still a team that defends very, very well, defends very compactly as well. They are one of the MLS leaders in the Eastern Conference in goals allowed. I believe coming into this game, they'd only allowed 4 goals, if I'm not mistaken.
Three. I think it was 3.
So 3 goals. So they are a incredibly tight, incredibly compact defense. I think the first part of this game plays out that way as well, as it was more difficult, I think, for FC Cincinnati to find passes that moved through this defense. And they certainly, at various points, reverted to trying to get over the top of it because it was so compact in the midfield. The first breakthrough in this match happens 39th minute. FC Cincinnati concedes first again. This is the third straight match that FC Cincinnati concedes first and goes down. Josh Bauer, the goal from Nashville, it comes off of I'll say it, an incredibly athletic but just kind of unlucky clearance from Nick Hagland as he goes to ground, basically goes to ground for a diving headed clearance off a ball that it was knuckling something fierce, and I think that like that was the only way that was getting cleared. And it happens to fall right to the feet of Josh Bauer, who blasts it past Celentano near post. Once again, it's sort of a chaos goal where the defense, you maybe hope that they're a little quicker to Bauer to close out, but it was a kind of a bang-bang play. Hagland, I think, did the best with the ball that he could.
Hmm.
To me, I wasn't super mad about this goal. This just felt like one of those, just sometimes this kind of thing happens when you're defending crosses into the box, you try to get it out and clear the danger area. Sometimes that happens, sometimes that doesn't. And, of all the players it's landing at the feet of, I think that you feel pretty confident that Josh Bauer is going to miss more of those shots than he makes.
Or put it right into the keeper's chest,
Right.
like one of those kinds of things. We didn't get a chance to ask Pat Noonan about this post game because there was a lot of other things as the game goes on to ask about in those kind of like rush out of the building post game press conferences. But I think the thing to be upset about, I think to your point, is not the like how it actually goes in the net. I think there's a if I could predict what Pat would say, it's the how the goal got built up to, and like talking about conceded goals is always going to be like a situational bias. Like the ball went in the net, there's going to be something you're upset about or not, something that didn't go well. And I think that the situation here that's like that if you could point to a problem in the situation, it's that they get to that space off the right, like near the goal line, too easy. And they don't like teams don't do it often against FC Cincinnati because the back line, especially when it's at full health, is generally pretty great at like keeping compact in front of goal. We've seen over the last 2 years that the biggest struggle they've had is like balls whipped in from way out wide is a more challenging thing. But getting to that spot felt a little too easy. I also think to your point about them defending really well, Nashville in specific, is that Brian Anunga this week when we spoke to him on Thursday for a player press conference said that like because he had spent a little bit of time there under BJ, I think it was only half a year, but like the thing he highlighted is like the BJ Callahan philosophy at Nashville is that we attack as one and we defend as one. So I noticed during the game that like Nashville moves in blocks.
Yeah.
Right? They don't stretch the field. They move in blocks. So when FC Cincinnati would get hemmed into their own end, the whole team was forward. When FC Cincinnati was attacking the Nashville box, the whole team was back defending. They don't stretch the field and try and play. It didn't seem like they were trying to stretch the field and play. So it created situations where FCC was getting really hemmed in and not able to pick up the ball and having to go direct over the top just to escape the pressure and reset play. And it ends up being what the best looks FC Cincinnati get is when they're able to stretch out of those blocks or out of those like compact segments of play and link play quickly up the field for transition moments. And I think if you see this, like, I wonder if this game's played 3 months from now, if FC Cincinnati looks way more dangerous early as they start to figure out what link up play looks like better.
Yeah. And it was interesting too that some of the best chances that they had in that first half, and some of the best chances they had in that first half were from over the top balls. There was a couple in particular, one that makes it over the top to Santos, and Santos's credit, he gets the ball 1v1 and then feels contact coming from the defender and goes to ground and gets a free kick in a pretty dangerous position out of that.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a very similar situation that leads to the equalizer with Evander, where there is a free kick just outside of the box, 43rd minute.
Yeah.
I'm kind of out of superlatives about what Evander does. He steps up to the ball. It's about, I would say, a good gentleman's 10 to 15 feet outside of the box, 5 yards, 6 yards. He, over the wall, takes maybe the slightest of deflections off the wall. Nothing that would have altered, I think, what the end result of this kick is, as it goes directly into the top corner, beats the keeper, who had no shot at this. Evander is an absolute weapon when he is standing over the ball for a free kick. And it's to the point now where I am more surprised that he doesn't put the ball on frame than when he does.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's I kind of think what his best skill is. I think we've seen so far with not only his free kick taking, but like early in the year with his corner kick taking, especially, is that like it's never a situation where the ball, like, it's not you don't give yourself a chance, right? Like even if it's off the wall or into the mixer and like an FCC player doesn't get to it first, it's almost always giving the team a chance, which is a huge step up from what a lot of the set piece service has been the last year or so. year or so. Yeah, like year or so, where like it was kind of like all or nothing, going for it. But with Evander, it feels like you're going to have more good chances than not. And then you add on top of the fact that he's just like the quality is unbelievable. Like it's not just the mindset of like I'm going to put it on frame. It's he can put it on frame in the smallest of windows.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Over the wall.
Like Joe Willis didn't have a chance.
No.
Like he couldn't have timed to jump any better, and he still just couldn't get pull the ball off of the crossbar. Like it just kisses right in.
Yeah, I don't think that if the only way he's saving that is if he's standing in the exact spot where the ball is going ahead of time and jumps straight up in the air. That's that's where it was. Unbelievable. This first half had a chance. It looked like it was going to go into half with FC Cincinnati trailing. Instead, 2 minutes before the 45th minute, they're equal. They're back on level terms. You're on the road on level terms. Going into halftime level on the road makes all the difference in the world in terms of what is available for Pat Noonan in the second half, what the philosophy of the match is, what the game state of the match is. So I thought that was big, especially because this was another game where this team, for better or worse, was struggling, I thought, to generate chances off of open play, especially in the first half. Like I said, they were finding it very difficult to move through the Nashville defenses. There's a tentativeness to this team on offense that I'm curious for your thoughts on. And we saw it a lot more in the first half before Denke came on. It got a little better in the second half, but still was a problem. And that's that, to me, what I'm seeing, and I'm curious if you're seeing the same thing, that what I'm seeing is that Evander is, I would have assumed based on watching him play at Portland when I went back and watched a lot of his footage after we were rumored to sign him, he was playing in a very advanced position in Portland. He is coming back he's coming back far to get the ball on this FC Cincinnati formation, to points where he was playing at a parallel level with Obi multiple times in this game. And I'm wondering if I'm curious if you have any insight or you're seeing anything as to, because when he goes that far back, he's not making himself available for the ball going forward on the forward progressing passes from players like Buka or Wabodo or from the wingbacks, because he's already so far back. It does sort of create a difficulty moving the ball forward. It seems like when he starts to drift further forward, the team starts to look a lot better and starts to find a lot better opportunities. I'm just curious why that isn't happening more.
I think it's there's lots of elements to it. Obviously, there's not like a simple answer to any of this.
Right.
My take, and this is a take on it. This is not like a researched my take on it is that I still think this team, for as much as frustrating as like the timing and the working together situation, like I still think that's the most obvious part of why this team needs more time to gel, and it's that I think for the last, what would it be, 5 years with Lucho Acosta as the talisman of the offense, Lucho was a very specific player in how this team functioned and built around that piece. And he did very specific things. He floated all over the field. He was like he was everywhere. He'd be back, he'd be forward, he'd be left, he'd be right. He was everywhere. But he was the talisman. And the job was to get him the ball and let him, distribute it out in those directions or take it himself and go forward, which he did extremely effectively for his entire time here. Or at least in the Pat Noonan era, extremely effectively.
Yes.
I just don't think Evander is that type of player, is that specific type of player, and that he likes to have the ball at his feet, but it's quicker. He wants to move the ball quicker than hold on to it himself and dribble through guys. Right? That's kind of how it seems like to me. The second part of that is that I think if FC Cincinnati is trying to make Evander the same talisman that Lucho was in that same sense, Evander himself is still figuring out what that means. And that takes time to work with Luka, to work with Kevin, and then have all these different pieces, come together, mixing it in with Pavel. The back line still has had no stability, right? We're still talking about like unique lineups because it's been so different. And I think it can't be ignored as part of this.
So if this edit sounds terrible, it's because there's obviously a storm blowing through Cincinnati. And Carter, the screen went dark. And then all of a sudden you dropped off the Zoom recording here. Is everything all right in the Chapley household right now?
Well, no. Everything is never all right in the Chapley household. It's mostly right, but no, we just lost some power. We just had a power surge and lost and power cut out there for a second, but it came back right away, which is unfortunate because they have to wait for the router and the modem to restart, and it's a
Right.
whole thing.
And unfortunately, you have to keep talking on this dumb show. Anyway, we'll move on to the second half then, because that's probably a sign that we were dawdling too long on this first half. Second half, immediately, first thing that happens in this second half is that we get a sighting of FC Cincinnati's designated player Kevin Denke comes on at the half, comes on for Nick Hagland, which means, folks, we're in a back four for this second half with Miles Robinson and Gilberto Flores as your two center backs. Denke up top. We're going for a win. We're getting Denke back on the field. Vibes feeling good, I think, from everybody involved. It's good to see Kevin back on the field.
Yep.
Loved the attitude, by the way, from him. We talked about this on the show. The messages to Cincinnati. I have to go after my country. I will see you soon. It felt like we were sending our favorite son off to battle, and now he has returned a conquering hero to us. Love that for him. However, the first thing that happens is not brilliance from Kevin Denke. It is FC Cincinnati placed under siege, and Kevin Denke whistled for the penalty on a corner kick by Nashville in the 49th minute. I'm going to be honest with you. I was under the impression, based on how this league is officiated, that all crime is legal on a corner kick. I recall seeing people thrown, grabbed, pushed, shoved, boxed out. About the only thing you ever see happen is a foul on the offense for doing something. I felt like this was an incredibly harsh whistle to Denke, given the fact that, and I think the announcers even said it, that if you are going to flag this as PK content, every corner kick is going to have something you can review to find a PK in right here. So this was not.
Well, that's kind of the contextual part of it, because I think like if you watched it in a complete vacuum, it probably is a foul, but like the context of like nothing's a foul. Like nothing's ever called. So like why is this one specifically? Like there have been corner kicks in this game with worse.
Right.
So when I watched it on like the monitor I had next to me, I was like, okay, like you're not wrong, but like you are. Like I don't like that call. And I thought it was kind of funny because like getting ahead of myself, it kind of felt like both media bases for like in the press box kind of felt like, not really. I don't know. Like, okay.
Yeah. It's an MLS corner kick. I thought we played in a physical league.
Right.
Apparently Denke thought
it's the calling card.
Yeah. And he's like, what do you want from me? This is how we play in this league. Unfortunately, VAR checks. VAR, when you look at it, it's a foul. It just never gets called that way. And I don't know that VAR has the ability to overturn a call on, you shouldn't call this. You're right, but you shouldn't do this. Roman Celentano lines up against Hani Mukhtar. Browsing the Nashville side of things. Not been too great on PKs lately. He was 1 for 2 this year so far. He missed several last year. They're not too thrilled with how Hani has been taking PKs, and there's some calls for Surge to take over those duties for Nashville. But either way, Hani steps up. He goes to his right. Unfortunately for Hani, unfortunately for the FC, so does Roman Celentano. Sticks his mitt up in the air. Incredibly strong-handed save for Roman, and the thought that rang through everyone who lived through the Rasheed Wallace era of basketball for the Detroit Pistons was, ball don't lie.
Ball don't lie. Yeah. Yeah, Roman said post game that he knew he was going left the whole time because he felt like Hani put his best shot, like his strongest shot when he opens up his body. And so I thought that was like very interesting context to the data and analysis that they do as goalkeepers going into these kinds of situations where it's not just he sometimes goes left, he sometimes goes right. I'm going to go always left or always right. The thought is just deeper than that, where it's Hani is best when he's doing this. So how do I counteract that rather than left versus right?
Right.
And it works perfect.
It was a great PK save from Roman. I've personally criticized a little bit of Roman's PK judgment, even encouraging him to the point of doing the George Costanza of whatever you think is going to happen, just do the opposite, because it seems like you're great at outthinking yourself. This was unquestionably a fantastic PK save. What makes it even better too is that it's strong. He has his arm up in the air. So many times in those situations, you see that the hand alone isn't enough to block the shot. You get an hand to it. Ball still goes in. Not only was it strong enough to block the shot, he also hits it over the crossbar and out of play, completely negating the ability for any rebound to happen.
Yeah.
Little dust up in front of the net. Hani decides for some reason to walk directly at Roman after the PK was done. I don't know what that was all about. But
I didn't even see it. I was so busy like heading straight to my laptop to tweet, that I missed the whole like follow up drama in front of the net. And so then I was like, when I saw the replay, I was like, oh wow, that was really a lot going on there.
The social media czar's dilemma of get out the tweet or witness exactly what's going on. This may be the best when he looks back on it. Hopefully, because it will mean that he's been not as busy for the rest of the year. This may go down as the best 5 to 10 minute stretch of Roman Celentano's year for FC Cincinnati thus far. Immediately after saving the PK, Roman is put under siege and has what I would just describe as an out-of-body experience, stopping not one, not two, but 3 shots right on the door frame of goal. He gets wide to stop one, he gets low to stop another one, and then somehow snags the 3rd shot out of midair in order to control the situation. This looked like a surefire Nashville scoring opportunity, especially on the first rebound opportunity. I don't know how he sees the 2nd shot come in to block it. Man, when Roman is on and Roman is locked in, Roman as a shot stopper is elite level at finding the ball and stopping the ball from going in the net.
Well, this is the thing he's best at, right? Like, there's a lot of nuance to being a goalkeeper and positioning, and a lot of talk about the U.S. men's national team in this past 2 weeks, like positioning and the details of being like a part of the 11 outfielders in offensive buildup and playing out of the back. But when it comes just to straight up keeping the, like, I think Roman has said this in the past, keeping the round thing out of the square thing.
Yeah.
When it's just that simple, he's one of the best in MLS, if not, the best at doing just that.
Yeah, it's one of those that's one of those built different moments right there, and it's one where when that happens to your team, when you have a keeper that's playing like that, it is the most demoralizing thing on the planet. It's a quarterback that scrambles on 4th and 15 to pick a first down up. It's soul crushing to watch that happen and watch those saves happen. But Roman, in this moment, the turnaround in the match right here, it goes from PK opportunity and surefire goal scoring opportunity. Nashville gets nothing out of either one of these opportunities. They probably put away a solid 0.8 to 0.9 XG in their back pocket, and they get 0 out of it.
Between the 3 looks, so there was some dialogue with the Post's own Damon Gumbert about this on Twitter, that like different places use different XG metrics. I use MLSsoccer.com just for the sake of I picked one and then consistently use that. And my parent employer should probably be the one that I pick. Is that between the PK and then they only registered it as 2 shots. The video I think clearly shows it's 3. But they've only registered it as 2 shots post PK. It's like 1.64 XG.
Jeez.
Between those 3 moments, and it's like 0.77, 0.54, and 0.6. Like it's something like that, where because the PK is always registered as 0.77.
Right.
But like it's 1 point, and that makes up by the end of the night. I think like there was only 2.8 XG for Nashville total. So that's like the majority of the XG generated in the game in that 5 minute window.
Just unbelievable. And it's very much a turning point in this match, I think, because from this point forward, I think if you draw a line right here at this point in the match when Roman makes that save, from this point onward, I think FC Cincinnati looks the better team. Whereas before that, I thought that it was probably generously 50-50, maybe tilted a little slightly to Nashville in the overall run of play. From this point forward,
That's fair.
FC Cincinnati is clearly the better team. Obi goes off hurt in the 59th minute. You don't like to see that. You might be in a better position to say something about this. It seemed a little more precautionary. Hopefully it's a little more precautionary, but you don't like anybody going off with what looks like a hamstring or a muscle injury on a non-contact type of situation like that. So I guess monitor that and hope that he's okay, because he's very much a part of what this team needs in order to keep their back line intact, especially minus Matt Miazaga. So Brian Anunga comes on, and if he was looking to get a little bit of revenge on his former club for letting him go, had a great opportunity and showed out a little bit in the 30 plus minutes that he played in this match. I thought he played very, very well.
Well, that's what that's what he's here for.
Yeah,
is the OB spell, right? Like that is his. That's the perfect replacement for Obi. He does so many things similarly to him. Great, also just a great guy, and so it was nice to see him get his chance to kind of come back to Nashville. And I think I tweeted this, that like he said earlier in the week that he was excited to come see some friends, and he's going to come spend some time with Hani Mukhtar and meet some. I think Hani had a baby recently and was going to meet the baby for the first time, and you wouldn't know that from the way he marked Hani and all of his former teammates, just putting bodies into him. So like just out physicaling everyone out there. So it was nice to see him get back on the field. I do not have any further information on Obi, unfortunately. Pat was very quick and non-specific about Obi's injury post-game, and so I'd imagine we probably won't find out formally Obi's status until probably Thursday.
Yeah, it would be we're hoping, just because you never want to see anybody get hurt, and also just he is very important for what this team does. But I really liked the way Anunga looked, especially in this back four formation. I think having the back four and the way that formation goes, I think it offers a little more cover for the things Anunga doesn't do as well, and allows him to focus a little bit more on what his skill set is, which is see ball, stop ball, get ball to someone who is better at progressing it forward than he is. And I think that's where he is good. We see a couple other changes come on in this game. Brad Smith comes on for Sergio Santos. He seems like a little ball bundle of energy, and he's fun to watch play. It seems like he is good burst when he comes on. The aforementioned Corey Baird comes on for Miles Robinson. Powell comes on for DeAndre Yedlin. What I liked about the substitution pattern was that this was a 1-1 game. They had been given a gift by Roman Celentano of being in this game still, and they were not content for 1 point in this game, I don't believe. They were out looking for it, and that is rewarded in the 90th minute, just at the start of stoppage time. A ball over the top into Corey Baird. Walker Zimmerman defending. Walker Zimmerman hand in an unnatural position. Ball goes off the hand. And what I loved most about this is that usually in these situations, there is an immediate shout for a handball from all parties involved. Corey, his first reaction was just sort of anger at himself that he didn't get to this, and only the barest of claim for a handball on this. Like, I got like a little bit of a tip touch thing, but it wasn't the wild gesticulating and throwing the arms up in the air. It was the most understated call for a handball I have seen from a striker in a really long time.
So I asked him about that post game, and I asked him, did he know that a handball had been called, like pretty immediately, by the ref, like pointed at the spot, and he was like, I thought he called for a goal kick, and I was not happy. And it was like, no, like understood. Like I would also be unhappy if you just watched the ball go off Walker Zimmerman's arm, and then a goal kick was called.
And since it is Walker Zimmerman, and this is the 90th minute, in honor of Walker Zimmerman committing a PK in the 90th minute, I thought it would be only appropriate to bring out my copy of Play On, the Walker Zimmerman story by a soccer story inspired by Walker Zimmerman's faith journey by Becky Zimmerman, Walker's mom. This happened in the 90th minute, so we're just going to go to page 90, and we're going to do a random reading of a paragraph out of this book, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right. I rummaged through my bag to find my ringing cell phone. It was Mom. She was stuck in traffic behind an accident, so I would have to wait. I sat on the curb behind the concession stand as close to the street light as I could get. This had never happened before, but after a few stragglers left, I found myself alone at the complex. The night seemed eerily dark and damp. A thick fog hung over the fields. A spider jumped on my leg. I flicked it off and crushed it with my water bottle. I hated spiders. I looked up and saw two dark figures coming closer on a sidewalk from a nearby neighborhood. I felt my heart beat harder as they came within feet and then walked by. I felt fearful and alone. I had a random thought about a preacher at a Christmas serving saying Emmanuel means God is with us. A reading from the book of Play On by Becky Zimmerman.
Oh.
Hopefully his heart was beating faster as he realized he may have cost his team the match right there with his hand. It was such a weird handball. There was no reason for Walker to have his hand up like that. It was in the most unnatural of unnatural positions. Referee points to the spot immediately. There's no doubt on it. The replay confirms the hand was indeed on the ball. Kevin Denke steps up to take the PK. I'm not a fan of stutter steps. I'm required now as an FC Cincinnati fan and a Kevin Denke fan to say I love stutter steps. I've always been cool with stutter steps. There's some discourse online, and I don't pretend to know what the people are saying or know whether it's true or not, that perhaps Kevin Denke stopped his forward momentum on his stutter steps and that PK should have been ruled off. Are we playing with fire with Mr. Denke's PK performances right here and how he chooses to address the ball?
Well, for starters, from this discourse, unless people are, who are commenting on these things, like,
they're national.
Physics
They're national
physics
fans.
experts.
So no, they're
unless
not.
They're physics experts who understand like the laws of, thermodynamics and momentum and all the other ones that are important to physics. Then they're an unqualified witness and they can't be used. They can't be called upon. Right? It's beyond the scope of their expertise. I think I will reserve my own comments and take the fifth on the preference of stutter step PKs. I do think with his penalty kick style, we've seen twice now, I do think he has to be careful.
Yeah.
I do think there is a zealous ref out there who maybe not in the 90th minute, I think we've seen with referees is they'll find a reason. Yeah. Like they will make a point of it. And it's close enough that if his overzealous ref wants to call it, that they might be able to. Whether or not that's part by the letters of the law, like whether or not he's actually stopping his momentum, like I can't speak to that. I don't know.
Right.
But I do think there's a case we made that he's got to be careful, and if that's his strategy, if that's his style. I think Laurel Failer pointed it out that he takes it really well.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes with a stutter step, with that hesitation, I guess is what you can call it. Guys get off balance. They look like they don't know where they're going. They can't decide, and they take a really weak penalty to one way or the other. Both times he's done it in the last couple of weeks, he's done the hesitation step or the feign step, I think is what I saw Ben Wright called it in the laws of the game. And it's a solid kick. Like he's taking it really well. Power. And so really that's all that matters. But I would be concerned that somebody calls it in the future.
Yeah. Just because it feels like, and I understand that every fan base thinks this, but in this case I'm right. It feels like we seem to be the victim of whenever there is some rule change announced or not announced, the first time we find out that it's a rule is when it's called against FC Cincinnati. And I still to this day think we're the only team that ever has the 2 minute off the field enforced when someone goes off for injury.
Yeah, happened to Evander today.
Happened to Evander when he was kicked Saturday in the foot, and somehow just because they didn't whistle a foul on it, he had to stay off for 2 minutes. I'm kind of curious. I wonder if it would be possible. So there was a pitcher in the major leagues for a while, Carter Chapley, I believe was his name, where he had this really funky delivery where he like crow hopped off the mound with the ball in his hand, and it looked like a balk. Like I would have bet my life savings it was a balk. But apparently they got it cleared by Major League Baseball, and for a while Major League Baseball gave it the you are blessed on this. I wonder if Denke could submit his PK run up for like a ruling from MLS. Like we need to know whether or not I'm good on this. And then like maybe Pat Noonan can carry a letter with him that if some ref tries to sanction, it's like, no, we've already gotten a ruling on this. You're wrong. Sorry. See the paperwork right here. We have a permit for him to kick this way.
Well, is this not it? Is this not like by rules of precedence? Like MLS referee of the year, Drew Fisher, has deemed that penalty kick acceptable and legal, and so therefore in the future, are you going to tell me that the MLS referee of the year is wrong?
No, I mean what you guys need to do is you guys need to get me or Grayson down there. We'll put him under oath, get him to sign an affidavit that the PK format is absolutely fine, and then at that point, as far as I'm concerned, the affidavit is binding. Like, what are you going to do? Overrule your superior, the person who does your job better? Yeah,
right. You said it.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Many people.
This is the laws of precedent. We've seen it twice now.
If you were going to stop it, you should have stopped it already. Now you have to live with it. Now
that was the rule. That was the rule in baseball forever. It's why like Nestor Cortez can get away with whatever wonky pitching delivery that is. That like by the rules of, I might be wrong about the wording on this, but like in a balk is that it's a variation from your typical motion.
Right.
And so long as you do it every time, it's not a balk.
Right.
And so like now he's just got to do it every time.
So it's not a balk if you balk every time. As long as you balk every time, you can't properly be said to trying to deceive anyone.
Right.
The happens at the death, 90th minute. By the time the kick goes in and everybody does their celebrating, 1 minute is elapsed. We have 5 minutes of stoppage time that FC Cincinnati sees out beyond that for a full-time result of 2-1. A massive, massive road victory for the FC. My thoughts on the game is that there's obviously work to do. There's obviously a concern with the lack of open play goals. I remain intrigued by this team looking a little bit better when they move to a back four, but not enough to call for that full time. Either way, it's a road result, and there is no such thing as a bad road result, and there's no style points on the road. 3 points to the good guys. It breaks a run of, we'll say, middling form for the team as well. To me, unquestioned positive. There's, anything that you want to complain about pales in comparison to the overall point of 3 points in the win column.
Yep. I think it's such a clear, like even in that first half where like and the lack of goals from open play, like I think the eye test for me pretty specifically outlines that like progress is being made. Like they look like against Atlanta, FC Cincinnati had real trouble just generating shots and getting opportunities and looks in the opposing third. Even in the first half when things weren't perfect and they didn't score until that one free kick, they generated looks and got balls into the box. They had like shots on target. They had balls closer in. Like better runs were being made. Like I think there's like it's not perfect obviously, and I think Pat said that post game that like there's lots of work to be done. But to me, it's such an obvious like progression step that like okay, we are seeing the progress Pat said he was hoping to make, even if it's in not as rapidly as we'd all hope it is coming at, because I think we'd all hope that it happened like instantly.
Right.
But we are seeing the progress that after an 8-game and 24-day whatever the numbers were, week over week training is paying dividends, and that's true to me. That's what that says to me.
Yeah, work to be done, but job well done in terms of this particular game. All right, we're going to take it over to segment 2 right here. We're going to talk a little bit about just sort of the team in general, where we've been, what you've been seeing in the trenches with the team and in your role at preseason and otherwise. So stick around. We'll be right back.
This episode is also brought to you by Cincy shirts. Look, Cincy shirts. You love Cincy shirts. They've been with FCC from the beginning, and we here at the Postcast, we're just huge fans of their work. They were very early sponsors of the Postcast here, and we have always enjoyed their work. If you head on over to cincyshirts.com, that's Cincy with a Y, shirts.com, and check out using the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, you will get 10% off your order, and you let them know that we sent you. Like they have MLS and MLSPA licensed FCC gear available online and at their 2 retail locations in Hyde Park and Fort Mitchell. If they don't have your size on the shelf, they can print you one on the spot. That is a fantastic feature and something that I have used as well. So again, special thank you to Cincy Shirts. Head on over to their website or check the link down below in the description for the promo code ThePostCincy for 10% off your next order. And a huge thank you to Cincy Shirts.
And we're back for part 2 right here. Carter, The Carter and Chief show continues for 2 segments. You've been kind enough to not jump off the Zoom call again due to weather or other concerns. I would not have faulted you if you just would have just disconnected and said, "Oh, your power's out. I don't think it's coming back this time." But
Well, you know, I've been playing Fortnite ever since we came back the first time. So if it looks like I'm distracted, it's because
I'm distracted.
Victory,
Victory.
you know, exactly. Yeah.
Chilling with the boys. I understand where we dropping. All right, let's talk about the team thus far. The last time we had you on, we had not had nearly this much information about where the team is, what the team is looking like. We've had games played. We've got a good sense of what this team is, but there are still some questions remaining. So I guess we're going to start at the beginning. How do you think, since you've seen this from point A to point whatever we're at right now, how has this team looked in comparison to the expectations that you had for them when they were in preseason? Because there was a lot of excitement, but also a lot of uncertainty with, players coming in, players coming out, going out late. The Lucho thing gets resolved late. Evander doesn't come in until very late. So based on where this team was when you broke from preseason to where it is now, have they met expectations? Are they below expectations, or where are they in your mind?
From the time they broke, like left Clearwater, is what you're asking?
Yeah.
From the time they left Clearwater, I think I would say, and would be backed up by the way Pat Noonan talks about this team, is they haven't met their own expectations. I think it's a little tough. I have a hard time setting expectations for the team, especially after how that preseason went. I think Pat and the team, I don't know if they expected to, no, like using the word expectations strangely here, right?
Right, yeah.
English is where expected to beat Tigers, but I think an expectation was they were going to move on in Champions Cup and progress and continue to win games. And I think they never start a season being like, we're going to be 3-2-1. We're going to be, I think they expect to go out there and win every game, and that's the bar they set for themselves to achieve, right? That's what they want to do. I think there have been games where it's looked really good and games where it's not looked really good. But I think after preseason, my ability to set expectations for this team was, I didn't know what to do. Like, I don't know what, because preseason was so interesting because you really didn't ever see the team together. Like, we saw more minutes from, and this is not a knock on him, but like Noah Adnan than we did Evander or Lucho, or, we saw more time with Andre Shirilla than Luca Oriano in preseason, right? So it was hard. We never actually saw a preseason with the full team together. It never happened. I think we saw some really interesting developments. I think we saw some players who could be really helpful in the future get opportunities, like those guys we kind of talked about. But we never actually saw it come together. Like even guys like, Kevin was out for a little while with the eye injury he had after that header in the Philadelphia preseason game, and then there was guys were out with illness and injury, and Teenage had a knock in preseason, and so at some point I can appreciate the conversation turning to yeah, that all stinks, but the job is to go out there and perform, and I think they know that. I just think it's hard for me as an observer to be like, I've seen all of this happen this preseason. What do I expect of the team? And it's kind of I don't know. I don't know what to expect, and I think that's kind of what we got is I don't know. Right, we've had a lot of ups, we've had a lot of downs, but the team's 3-2-1, and they looked really good in the Tigres games. Of the 180 minutes played against Tigres, they looked good for 150 of them, which is interesting. They played Motagua pretty well, even though they drew the second leg. But I think we can kind of look at the team they put out there, and
they didn't need that game,
right? And so it's a little different. But then you go out there and you play pretty well versus Toronto, but then get the brakes beat off you in Philadelphia, and it's well, what the hell's going on here? All while doing it, never training. Evander's second training session with the team was, I'm pretty sure, after Charlotte. Full actual training session was after Charlotte. It was his second time. Wow. Right, and so it puts into context, when you're talking about you gotta figure it out on the field, it's not easy. It's not obvious. It's you're kind of just out there doing stuff, and they're strategizing and they're trying to put guys into positions to play, but it's hard. And so I don't know what my expectations were for the team, and maybe that's why 3-2-1 makes a little bit of sense. Yeah. How it happened, maybe not, but
How much of a sense did you get when you were in preseason that this team was that like there was so much influx? And I think that it's we've gotten a little further away from preseason, and it's easier to forget just how much craziness was happening. You had Luca Orishano and his contract situation that took some time to resolve. You had Yuya Kubo, who was having a contract situation where he wasn't in training for an extended amount of time. Lucho Acosta was in this training camp, which is, it's easy to forget that there was a portion of time where Lucho was present for what was going on with this team. Evander doesn't come in until, I think, the last week of training. With all those sort of parts in flux, when you're watching this team and you're covering this team, where do you even begin to start addressing how far back this is setting the team, or do you even feel comfortable saying that this is setting the team back because of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the second preseason game, Pat talked about it in his press conference, and it kind of validated some, like, we haven't had a preseason yet.
Yeah.
Like, we've had some guys out here, but it's like a lot of FC Cincinnati 2 and Academy guys filling in places, right? Like, Luca's here, but he's like he also had a hip injury. He had some stuff that he was dealing with to start preseason off legitimately. Lucho's not here. Yuya has only showed up a couple days ago. Like it was like after that game was like, oh wow, like we just haven't actually, the team's not actually gelling. Like Kevin's not getting the ball sent into him because it's, who knows who's back there playing it, right? It's I think these are good players. Like I think we saw this preseason that a guy like, and it's really unfortunate the way it happened, but like Amir Daly is a good little player, and he might be something for this team in the future for the organization. But like that's not, for example, Lucas Engel, who wasn't here yet either, right? Like who is a different kind of player. And so it kind of introduces some interesting questions, right? Like Stefan Sharilla is playing starting striker next to Kevin Denke, and like if he can do that this season, if that's like where it ends up, that like the best strike partner is Kevin Denke, the MLS at 1 point record-setting transfer, and also an 18-year-old, that means something has gone tremendously right. Right.
Or something horribly wrong. One or the other.
Right. Like I guess, but like something is like there's something that's happened, right? But like Sergio was out for a little while, injured as well, and like it was just so inconsistent, and so it felt like, especially after that second game, because the second preseason game happens, and then there's a 3-day break, and you're kind of left with your thoughts for 3 days, and you're like, and kind of hearing what Pat has to say, and you're kind of thinking, this next 2 weeks is going to be really important because they got to put this into warp speed if they're going to come out the gate as strong as they hope to, because the talent is all there, it's just not together yet, and that's hard.
And so we've also heard a little bit about, and I'd be curious on your take on this as well, is that, okay, you've got all this transition happening with this team early in the season, and then on top of all this transition, all these players coming in and out, all these players, varying degrees of fitness and availability, you also immediately jump into the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And it's something we've talked about a little bit on here, that historically, as frustrating it is for all of us to deal with as fans, that it's very difficult to maintain form in both, that you're either going for it in CONCACAF or you're going for it in league. You can't prioritize both. It's too much. What was the experience like for this team in terms of how much travel this team was going through during that period where we played Motagua and Tigres in the span of like 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a grind. Like it's a lot, and I think the sports science of it better dictates these kinds of things, like traveling, like Motagwa's at altitude and you have to play at altitude, and that's fine. We also traveled to altitude. I can't remember what it was, but it was it wasn't an insignificant jump in altitude, but we were also just training in Florida at sea level for the last month. So like that's a hard transition as well. The flights, the amount of time on a plane is a challenge because of the, getting up there in the pressurized tin can is, for you and I, inconvenient, and we travel pretty well, but also like for elite athletes, the amount of dehydration they go through in those pressurized is a challenge when they're trying to keep up with that kind of stuff. So you have to be really diligent about the way you're eating, about the way you're, taking care of your body in order to play every 3 days basically for a month. It's a challenge. I think the thing that kind of stood out to me most was that, like, even if, to your point, like, it's hard to keep form in both, let's say you decided, right? Like, hey, we're just not going to take the MLS season seriously for this first month. Like, we're going to advance in Champions Cup, and we're going to put everything we can into Champions Cup. Or the other way, we don't care about Champions Cup. We're just going to put everything into the MLS regular season. This is the thing we've decided to do. I'm not saying that's what's happened. I'm saying the hypothetical.
Theoretically.
It's still so much work. It's still the amount, like, you're like, I think, like, I'm trying to think of what the most specific one was like, we played, Saturday at home against Toronto, Sunday off, Monday training. You have to fly out on Monday because according to CONCACAF rules, you have to train on site the day before a match for CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's the rules they set. So you have to fly out an extra day early to do a training session at this locale. Okay, so, like, fine, whatever. It's another day away from your family. You stay over the next night because you usually can't fly out of Honduras or Mexico, like, out of a private airline or out of a private airstrip like we do in the MLS stuff. So you have to fly to, like, General Terminal X.
Just the entire team going through baggage claim in
Mm-hmm.
a Honduran airport.
And you're on your charter, you're on your team charter, but you have to, like, go to gate 4
Right.
in order to do it, right? So, like, we all go through immigration and, on either side, right? Like, it's and then you fly and then you get back. You're back on Thursday or whatever, Friday at 8. You play Saturday night. Even if you decided one of these games we're playing reserves or we're going to heavily rotate, that's still a lot of work. And you only have, I think, what does this team have right now? 26 players on the roster.
Right.
So you can rotate completely. You still need guys to do both.
Right. And, like, we noted that, like, how many extra players Tigres had on their roster versus how many players that, the FC was allowed to carry on the roster. I don't want to forget you in all this as well, because, the difficulties of being, a writer covering this team. I'm guessing that the press boxes are of inconsistent quality around CONCACAF as well. And in terms of the facilities provided, probably not what you're used to as well. So don't sell yourself short. I'm sure that there were some ups and downs in your coverage as well. So you're part of the team here.
I wear it like a badge of honor. I try. I am the one slighted by all this. It's me,
Clearly,
not anyone else.
Won't somebody please think of the media, please?
It's not flying to Honduras with, like, thousands of bottles of water so that, like, you don't have to worry about potential whatever is bacteria in the water that you're not used to, and, like, brushing your teeth with bottle. It's the writers.
Yes,
that's who's really plagued by this. It is a varying quality. Like, Monterrey, between both Tigres and CF Monterrey, Liga MX is a different kind of animal. Estadio BBVA is a basically, like, 21st century American sporting stadium. So it's press box, nice press booth, everything's really nice. Estadio Universitario for Tigres, a little older, a little more college football field, but it was, like, the highest up I've ever been at a press box. Like, it was, like, basically the last row of the stadium, so you look, like, down on the field.
So you were, like,
pretty
super
cool.
at elevation then.
Oh yeah. Even more. Yeah,
you get the Bens going down to the locker room to try and check on everybody.
Really. And well, then you got to rush down from the press box to the tunnels where they're doing the press availabilities post game, and like, I'm texting John Horlander and I'm like, I will get there as soon as I can. I'm literally a mile away. Like, I'm so far away. I am running as fast as I can.
Yeah.
And I'm trying, and it's like our poor security guard who's, like, supposed to be staying with me is like, where are you going? And I'm like, I
gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta go. Jamaica and Honduras are just, like, different animals, and that's kind of cool too. Like, that's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Jamaica did not have a press box at all. There was some like bleacher sections that were, like, cornered off for us, but, like, I was like, I'm not sitting here. Like why would I do that? So I ended up sitting, like, in row 4, like, by the Powell family, which was pretty cool. By Elvis Powell's family.
Yeah.
That was fun. And that was, like, a whole different experience because I basically just messaged someone, was like, yeah, like, I'm not writing during the game because there's no press box. So I'm sitting in the stands. I'm gonna write it on my phone.
Right.
What I did. Honduras was a new animal. That was something I've never experienced. A little bit more of an established stadium, but no formal press box for, like, print media. plenty of media spacing for photography and video, which seems to be the kind of the way things go, is that if you're a journalist there, you're doing it all, your photo, video, like if there's a blog, you're writing it too. That was the impression I got. And there was, I'd probably say, hundreds of people there doing media work in some capacity. Yeah. Like, but I don't know how they did credentialing though. So like, hundreds,
anyone with a phone can
right,
show up.
Right. Yeah. And so that's kind of what it was. The experience I had in Honduras though is like, I will tell this story now. Because I think it's a fun story, where I was physically removed from a box I was put into by a group of goons who I later learned were like the Honduran national team head coach's buddies.
Oh,
because he wanted the box I was put in, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying to me. Like, I don't know who you are. So okay, I'll start from the beginning. So Honduras, there's no press box. Like, at the stadium, there's no press box. Every other media space like that we're working with the team seems like at the very least fine. We were given, there was a great suite for like the technical staff, and Jeff Birding came with us as he should, and had a nice space, and that was really cool. Like, I kind of visited there a little bit. Really cool space. And then, like, we used the locker rooms at the stadium that Olympia uses, which is the other team in Tegucigalpa. It's Motagua. Those are the two big teams. And so it was like a home locker room. So it was pretty well maintained, like big showering, hot tub, cold tub kind of stuff, like very modern, completely normal, like to the soccer quality, so to speak. There's no press box though. So basically, like, I spent the day before talking with our security people, being like, hey, so like, where are you going to put me? Like, where am I going to go during this game? And they're like, okay, so I think we got this started. They gave us a box up in the top level, just for, non-field technical staff. So like, not everyone who travels is in the coaching boxes. Most of them are, or a lot of them, do stuff pre-game. They're not on the field. They do stuff post-game. And at TQL Stadium, there's plenty of spaces for us. On the road in MLS, plenty of spaces. In this case,
not so much.
not so much. And so I talked to our security guards who were there, who we had brought down with us, and then they organized with the locals where to put me. And so I said, okay, so we're probably like 20 minutes to kick off. And I go up to our security guards and I'm like, hey, can we go up there now? And he's like, yep, let's go. They give me a guy. We walk up there. They get me seated. There's a private bathroom. There's this, there's that. It's great. Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I need to go, like, before kickoff, escort some people around. I'm going to close this door and lock it from the outside, like lock it. And then I'm going to take the key. And then, so if somebody comes back here and unlocks it, it will be someone from FC Cincinnati.
So you got locked in to this little room.
But yeah. And I was like, great, perfect. This is now my space.
Did you have the ability to unlock it from the inside though?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Like,
all right.
I could leave in the event of the event of an emergency. But the point was that, like, no one's going to come in here who's not me, basically, who's not like the person who escorted me up there. So he leaves like 5 minutes later. Game had not started yet. The door opens. I turn around. It is not someone I recognize, and I'm like, I am in trouble. This is not going to be good. Like, how did you open that door?
Right.
I was told no one could open that door.
Was promised.
And then like 13 guys walk in, probably all 50s, 60s guys.
Yeah.
None of them speak English, not a word.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm breaking out the phone. I'm trying to get the Google Translate out, like, to explain, like, hey, I think you're in the wrong room. And then like a younger guy who's probably closer to my age, he speaks English. He says like, hey, this is the coach's box. He needs some privacy. And I was like, no, I think you've got that mistaken. Like, I understand he needs a box. Like, I'm not telling you he doesn't need a box.
Right.
I think you've just found the wrong one, because I've just been escorted here for FC Cincinnati. And he's like, yeah, no, he needs this box. Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay. So he's like, no, so you're going to need to leave. I'm like, well, hold on. So I start firing texts off to anyone on my phone who will answer, like team administrators, the security guards, communication staff. I'm like, someone needs to come up here now to get this sorted.
Was there a part of you that was worried that you were going to end up in the back of a sedan, like at some point in the course of the story?
And so as I'm texting, they're getting more frustrated that I'm not understanding that I need to leave. And eventually a bunch of them just start putting their hands on me. I'm like, whoa, guys, like, no, I'll go. I just need to wait for someone to come up here to tell me where to go next.
Right.
Because if I leave, just like delaying as long as I can. And eventually I'm realizing my time is running out. So I start packing my bag. I'm texting people. They're like, we're on our way. And then 3 dudes just grab me by the shoulders. One pushes me. It's just like, you can go now. And just removes me from the box. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no. So now I'm just in like the general concourse area with
Just
every
standing.
piece of equipment I have standing. No one knows that I'm like, no one at this point knows that I've been removed from the suite. I'm like, I don't know where to go. Like, no clue. Like, and so as I'm being removed, I can hear whistle blows. The game has now started. And so the first thing I do is I tweet, game has started.
Yeah, that's always a good way to start. Yeah, well,
Game has started.
That'll get us through
Nothing
at least the first 3 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
I hope.
Eventually it gets sorted. The building administrator, like the person who runs the stadium, comes to talk to them, and this group of guys equally disrespects him as they disrespected me. So like they were not supposed to be there. They just decided they wanted that room.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
they were going to take it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So at least this wasn't a mix up. Like they just
Right.
a bunch of dudes just
Right.
barged into the room and kicked me out of somewhere
Good.
that I was supposed to be.
They're assholes to everybody. This is exciting.
Right.
It's not me personally. I feel so much better now.
No, well, it was like, but so like, I definitely was like, if I do not yield to this instruction, there's a good chance there's going to be a larger physical confrontation that like I do not have the numbers for.
That I do not emerge victorious from,
Right.
based on just numerical advantage and disadvantage right here.
And so the solution to this is eventually a security guard. They find a new space for me. They move me over there. It's down a level, and they walk me into the room. And I realize that the rest of the technical staff has found somewhere to sit, like
Right.
auditionally, and I just needed a space that I could have my laptop out to work.
Right.
And so they put me in this box with, and this probably didn't come across in the broadcast, is that like the whole of the army was at the game. Like that's the only way I can describe it. It was like a good number of like non-supporter section seatings
Yeah.
was like Honduran armed forces like members in their dress wear, like sitting to watch the game. And so they stick me in a booth where there's separate doors, but the
Right.
seating is all in one line with the like Honduran 907th Division of the Army all in their dress wear.
Right.
And they're like, this is your seat. And I'm just like there with the boys now.
Right.
Like I'm part of the platoon. And so I sit the whole game there, covering it. Like I can see the rest of our group. So I'm like, if there's a crisis, I can.
Right. Yeah, I'm an eyesight. We can do like
We can communicate. Like people can see me. But like as the game goes on, it's become apparent that like half of the group are Motagua supporters. Like half of these people are Motagua supporters, and half of them are Olympia fans who desperately want Motagua to lose. So they're cheering for FC Cincinnati, like it's like
You really are part of the platoon now. This is
Right,
great.
so
We're
like,
serving
so like-
together.
so they're going crazy, and then I start keeping track of how many beers are getting into the box, and
Right.
I'm like, this is gonna get more rowdy than I'm prepared for. And I kind of decided after the Evander goal at the very end, he scores. It's 4-1. I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'm going
So
down.
I-
I'm gonna go down and get set
so
up for the
I-
interviews now.
So I'm fairly certain. I don't know if you can see it based on like how the cameras are. I know you could see it if like I had done this earlier in the game. That after the Evander goal, there's the restart. You can kind of see me walking along the side, going to where the tunnel is to go downstairs because I'm like, I am getting
Yeah,
ahead of the
no.
game here.
Like half of my seating partners are going to be very, very angry, and they're
One
probably
way or the other.
right, and they're probably a little overserved at this point. So
Yeah.
I need to find someplace else to go.
So it was one of those stories that like only in the Concava,
Right.
only in CONCACAF.
What-
Like it was scary in the moment, like
Right.
for the 15 minutes, and then kind of towards the end, I was like genuinely very afraid of what was going to happen to me, because like I couldn't have predicted how this would
Right.
play out.
It-
And then like the next day, I was like, that was crazy. What a
Right.
story!
It's just like we went from various danger situations to danger situations, where the first danger situation is I'm going to be in a trunk somewhere and dumped off on the side of the road all beaten. The next one is I'm not going to escape the fist fight that occurs between these two people
I'm
that
caught
I
in
am
the middle.
directly in the middle of right here. Like one of those
Yeah.
like Looney Tunes clouds of people all fighting that you get sucked into.
Yes, exactly. There's like 30 dudes in there, and they're all arguing. No clue what they're arguing about. I just know that they're upset Motagua is losing.
Just thumbs up to both sides. Like I'm just
Yeah.
here for a good time. So
I love
that is
CONCACAF.
that is to say, the CONCACAF Champions League. It weighs on everyone, team, staff, and fans alike. And emerging from the other end, I think it made all of us stronger in various ways.
Yes. Yep. Yep. It did. I do want to impart that it is a lot of work, and the preference is to win the tournament regardless.
Because if you're gonna put all that work in, I mean, Christ, why wouldn't you want to win?
Right. And the I think losing in the what do we call it, round of 16?
Yeah.
For the second year in a row is not even if we have to continue to do this for the next, I think it's 2 months is until the final.
Right.
The preference would be to win the tournament 100%. And so no matter how hard that work is, it is the premier tournament of the region, right? So it's one of those questions that people have of what tournament would you rather win in a given year? The Champions Cup is the biggest one technically speaking, so that's the one you want to win. This year it didn't happen.
Didn't happen this year. Well, hopefully things will be a little more gelled going into next year's version of it, and we're still qualified for it as well. Looking forward a little bit from this point, right now Denke is back, teenage, hopefully will be back and available upcoming shortly. The lingering piece out there that I think that everybody's is sort of looking at is Matt Miazaga. And he returned back, I think, to some form of training with the rest of the team this week. And it feels to me that there is just a vocal leadership hole on this team that just other people can't fill, not because of anything that's wrong with them, but just more from the idea that there's only one Matt Miazaga. And if there were two Matt Miazagas, they would probably get into a very large fist fight with one another because only one Matt Miazaga can survive. It's kind of like Highlander a little bit. There's only one Matt Miazaga. This team has historically just looked like a different team with Miazaga on the field. And I think you saw that last year as the team looked for solutions, whether it was Chidozie Awazim, whether it was Teenage Hadebe. They were looking for someone to fill that void right there. Am I overstating the importance of Matt Miazaga to this team?
No, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
I think we've learned that over the past year that you cannot overstate the importance that Matt Miazaga brings, both from just a roster build perspective, right? But also a leadership perspective, right? Matt Miazaga is the 2023 Defender of the Year.
Yeah.
This team has a really good defender in Miles Robinson, a worthy winner of that award, in my opinion, someone who could have won that award in another circumstance of that award, but it's just one of them. Now imagine you have two. Right. To the Matt Miazaga, if there's two of them, they'd be fighting. I am willing to extend that to the Sith rule of two.
Oh, okay. So Matt could have an apprentice Matt.
And I think it's more so that it's Matt and Nick is the light side, dark side balance that the team needs. And losing them at the same time is was really devastating in a way that I think we tried, the club tried to overcome last season. With the people you were talking about bringing in, Teenage was one of those people. And I think he's a really good ad. Cheeto was another one of those people. But it's just different. Those kind of guys control the room in a different way, and it's very obvious. But they control the field similarly in a different way. They're very vocal. They're very commanding. They're also very talented. And so, last year, at the very least, FC Cincinnati was able to go out and replace Matt Miazaga's roster spot with Cheeto as a Max Tam player, or adjacent, Max Tam adjacent, whatever you want, whatever the details were. That's effectively what it was. This year, they're playing without one of those. It's another player they don't have on the roster, is because they're not going to, use the season-ending injury mechanism to replace him now because you want him back. So that's something to consider for the first part of the season, is that you're missing one of the most important expensive players on your roster build, and he's still not here. Then also, he's a leader. Yeah. And I think we cannot overstate the importance of Matt Miazaga to this team, in the same way that you couldn't overstate, it'd be like saying Roman didn't play a role in the win on versus Nashville. Yeah, it's no, it's a huge part. It's maybe the most important part. And so I think Matt coming back will change this team in the long run. You never know what happens in the first game back, right? We saw Nick come back. He had a great performance. It's 45 minutes.
Right.
You never know how he's going to make his debut. I think they said that there is a plan over the I think he said. Pat Noonan said this a week ago, over the next month to have him make a debut. I think that's what he said, or involve him more consistently, which I'm not sure what the details of that are, but Matt has been in and out of training groups dating back to preseason, right? Like we saw him on the field for the first time in preseason, and now he was in training, like stuff like that. So I think once he's back, it changes the way you can think of this team.
Yeah. And it feels like that's the missing piece, that like once we see Matt on the field with this team, then I think we'll have a fuller picture of what this team can and can't do, just because I think that, and it's going to take some time. Like, again, it's annoying, but like he's coming back from a very serious injury. That doesn't happen on the first game, like you were saying. But I think that what he offers this team in terms of organizing the back line and just it's the ability to move the ball through the various stages of the field gets better when you have a Matt Miazaga on the field. And then, it frees Miles Robinson to do what he does even better. And now he doesn't have to be in the center, and he doesn't have to be the captain of all this. So we're looking forward to that. I guess the overall look on this team, overall vibe on this team, I'm curious what your take is. We asked Evan this question. What's the vibe? What is your vibe on this team right now as we sit here on March the 30th in the evening during a thunderstorm?
Yeah. I was told naders are possible tonight.
Naders?
So
right.
Tornadoes. Yeah. My experience with that in Iowa got me ready for that. I think the vibe with this team is like it's almost as if they have spent so long like struggling to tread water and trying to hold themselves to their own, like the burden of their own expectations, that finally just now it kind of feels like. And the Nashville game, Atlanta could have felt like this. The Atlanta win could have felt like that. A win over Atlanta 2 weeks ago, and where it ended up being a draw, could have felt like this. But the Nashville game now kind of feels like a big deep breath.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, now that like the work is going to happen. Like we've got through this like really turbulent period. We got through the international windows. We got through that crazy start. Like we're now training together all week, and we're starting to build together. But now all the guys are coming back together, and Matt's just on the horizon, and Nick's back, and this and that, and it kind of feels like the vibe is like, especially after that win. Okay, let's get going.
Yeah.
Like let's get it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels from my end writing about the team, is that it's felt like there has been a lot to write about as to like why it shouldn't go right for the last month, and then them either happening and talking about why it happened, or look how much they overcame.
Right.
Now it kind of feels like, I said that I think we talked about this a little bit in preseason in something I wrote, but like last year FC Cincinnati like lost, I think it was like 2 games in a row for the first time under Pat Noonan. One of them was in Montreal, I remember that much, and then rattled off like an 8-game win streak. And it just kind of feels like with the way Champions Cup like impacts your team, it's going to take some time. And I can appreciate that as a fan, that kind of patience is really challenging.
Yeah.
Like I can appreciate that because like I just
thank
watched,
you for appreciating my perspective.
like I just watched the Blue Jays lose like a 3-game series, like 1 win, 2 losses, and I'm like off the deep end about the team.
Oh, it's
like
done. Season's over.
Like the season's over. Like Max Scherzer's already on the 15-day DL. Like the year is over.
Yeah.
Right. Like so I can appreciate that, but I do think that like there is a course to be stayed here, and that the expectations for this team, as high as fans hold them for the team, like Pat holds himself to that, and the players hold, like they expect to be great. They have the expectation of themselves of greatness, and I think they're working to achieve that. And now it kind of feels like we're getting closer to like that's going to happen.
Nice. I think that's all people want to hear. Is I think that there's, we're all uncertain where it is now. We feel good about how it was this weekend. We know there's things to improve, but it does feel like no matter where you are on the spectrum with this team, and you said at the outset you were going to play the Grayson role a little bit more. But like,
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. I don't know. It means being irrationally angry about weird things that are like 10 years beyond. Like you're still mad that they didn't sign someone last year in the window for some reason. But I think
they did. Nico Gioacchini was here. I was there. I wrote about it.
Was he? Yeah, I blocked that out. But no matter what the situation is, that it feels like this team's best moments and this best minutes are ahead of it, and I think that that's sort of I think the good thing with all this.
It is the thing that's hardest to kind of sit through those, because like especially like I think this happened when I was covering the Cardinals, when I was covering the St. Louis University Billikens, is that like a media member, like I am in the unique situation of working for the team, but I am a media member. I'm treated like a media member. I work in media spaces. You're with the team so much that it's hard not to like feel for them in certain situations. and kind of see what that struggle looks like. And so it's always the thing that I'm kind of like struck by, especially in like the fan community talking about the team, is that like the fans want more always. And
Always. Yeah, we're
I don't
greedy as
blame them
hell.
for that.
Yeah.
But the funny thing I find is that like almost always the players and coaches agree. Like almost like maybe not agree on the specifics or like some like specific details of like criticism or analysis. Like that's not what I'm talking about. Like fans want to win, they do too. Like coaches, like this coaching staff specifically, this group of players, they also want to win. They also know that like the losses, the this, the that,
Right.
are not up to their own standard. And so that's where I'm kind of like that's where I'm always like I feel like I need to do a better job at communicating that because like I think they also want this really badly, and sometimes I feel like that doesn't get across the way I want.
And I feel like sometimes fans are also slaves to the moment too, and slaves to the narratives that we create in our own head. We talked about a little of this last week on the show specifically with Miles Robinson, where the idea of a narrative out there where like, wow, Miles isn't available a lot. And it's like, well, if you look at it in each individual situation, it's like, yeah, of course he's going to go play for his country in the Olympics. Who wouldn't dream of playing for their home country in the Olympics? Of course he's going to take a call up to the national team. You know, is it anyone's fault that he gets sick going through before a match? It's like he clearly, like, there's a desire there. He wouldn't be handed the captain's armband if there wasn't a desire and a commitment to this team. He's very, very effective when he's out on the field. But it's like, as fans, we always tend to see sometimes when we're feeling negative about the team. I'm guilty of this especially.
You find patterns.
Yeah, you find patterns that don't really exist because it validates your thoughts as a fan and your dumb emotional takes about the team. And so you always got to be on guard for that, especially, you know, when it is a long season. It's not as long as the Blue Jays season. You got 159 of these left, but like
it's going to kill me. It's going to kill me.
So vibes good, vibes high. Carter,
I will say on the Miles Robinson talk, I do want to make sure I point this out. No one played more center back minutes for the FC Cincinnati last year than Miles Robinson, which is crazy considering he was away for like international duty so much. But like he is as reliable as they come in terms of like playing for the team.
An insane stat.
I know, like it's like but that's kind of the definition of what happened last year.
Yeah.
Like it's like, well, what happened? Well, Miles Robinson, who was away for like a month and a half, played the most center back minutes. So that's a challenge. But I also think it's like I think in terms of like the injuries and precautions with, you know, I saw a conversation about the Nashville game with Miles getting subbed off, and I think it was the 80th minute, and it's like. There's these guys, the sports science of all this is like they know when the guys are healthy and when they're not, and coaches make the decision of when guys come off.
Yeah,
like that's the decision. That's the choice. And like DeAndre Yedlin gets to choose for himself. In this case, like it was mentioned post game that like DeAndre Yedlin was sick going into Saturday's game, but he was okay enough to play. Whether that was, you know, and he went out there and did his best, and he played accordingly. Like Pat highlighted some places. Pat highlighted some places post game where he did things to accommodate the fact that he wasn't going to have the pace that he needed to see out a 90-minute match with the way he was feeling. That's more interesting to me than Miles came off early in Charlotte and hashtag doesn't have that dog in him, which is just like, I think that just shows you don't know Miles.
Right.
Like I think he's like no one questions Miles like that, and I'm standing up for my guy.
Yeah.
That's my guy. So
Miles Robinson, certified dog haver. You heard it here first.
Yes.
All right. Well, before we get to go, are you good to keep going, or do you got to get out? Because if you got to get out, I understand that you've been very generous with your time.
I may bail here.
Go for it. Yeah.
As we're getting a little, but I apologize for not being out tonight.
You're good. So we'll change what you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Carter, thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate it. The insight is always good to hear from the most reliable member of the FC Cincinnati traveling media who did not get kidnapped in Honduras, thankfully, because you know what? We would have missed you. We would have definitely
Me too.
We would have definitely donated to the GoFundMe to get you bailed out from whatever. Carter, we can find you online, fccincinnati.com, on the Bird app, Twitter, anywhere you consume your media. Thank you so much for being here. Look forward to having you again on the Postcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and remind Kevin to read my Patreon questions next time.
I will possibly remember to do that. Carter Chapley, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you sticking with us, we'll move over to part 3. we're joined by Mark Szwejkowski from Jim Trace and the Makers to talk a little bit about Cincinnati icons. So stick around. Oh, and joining me to do segment 3 right here, we're going to be talking a little icon talk with Cincinnati. We read the article in Variety as part of the Soccer Blog Book Club on Thursday regarding not FC Cincinnati, the city of Cincinnati. Please correct me on that one. The city of Cincinnati. We were up for the Sundance Film Festival, I'm sure, as you know by now. That didn't go the way we were hoping. And the article we read as part of the Soccer Blog Book Club on the podcast last Thursday was about Cincinnati. The quote was, "I feel like the legacy of Sundance is decades of cool storytellers trudging up and down snowy main streets. There's a vibe, a hipness to it. It's iconic. What's iconic about Cincinnati?" And I thought to myself, you know what we need to do? We need to get someone in here that is not actually from Cincinnati, but has chosen to make it their home and just talk a little bit about, from an outsider's perspective, is Cincinnati iconic? What is iconic about Cincinnati? I had a little bit of a tweet that went semi-viral about this, suggesting some things that were iconic about Cincinnati. So please welcome Mark Szwejkowski, Jim Trace and the Makers. You know them, you love their music. Shwy, how you doing this evening?
Oh, man, I am good. I am fresh back from a trip down to Nashville with 3 points in my pocket. My voice is a little raspy if you couldn't tell. We had a great time, and I am thrilled to be joining the program to talk iconic Cincinnati stuff. I wanted to talk about that Variety article that you guys covered on the last episode. The person who was interviewed for that article, is that not the most like elitist liberal MAGA take like ever? Like,
wait, elitist liberal MAGA?
Yeah, but like, I mean, like, I was just thinking to myself the entire time, like, this is like the yin and the yang of the MAGA. Like, don't take my festival away, please. I must ski and see festivals and see movies and talk to direct. I'm like, come on, like, what are we doing here? It was just so funny to see the difference. The two sides of the same coin, I would say.
Yeah. So you were at the FC Cincinnati game this Saturday.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
What was the occasion? What brought you down to Nashville?
So, one of my buddies had his bachelor party. Not to be too cliche, but we went down for a bachelor party, and part of the central reason was to go to the FC Cincinnati game. So we were down for the weekend, and we partaked with everyone at the game.
And you saw a good game. We just had Carter Chapley on to talk about this. Big question from your vantage point. You were up in the supporters section right there, obviously. The PK on Denke.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it looked a little sus that they were calling that on a corner kick. I said to Carter, I think all crime is legal on corner kicks, and yet somehow this gets called. Did you guys know what was going on up there? Because we were all confused as hell as to how is it ever possible that anyone gets called for a PK on a corner kick?
We were apoplectic. I mean, like, it was, I watched it happen the entire time. From start to finish the play. And I was in disbelief that they were calling the penalty, because if that's a penalty, then there should be a penalty pretty much on every single corner that gets taken in the game of soccer. It was tough. And we weren't obviously feeling pretty good. I think it was coming at the end of a spell where we were kind of starting to lose a little bit of our control over the game, because we started really brightly in the first 15 minutes. And that really kind of felt like just such a kick in the nuts. So I could not believe that they called it. It was not a penalty in my opinion. It was, I don't even know how the refs saw that. Like, my God, it was just a natural coming together.
Yeah. Funny you should phrase it that way. I didn't want to bring this up with Carter because obviously, he is not allowed to criticize officiating due to his position. We are going to make that our Lasik moment of the match. And this segment is literally sponsored by Lasik. Yes, Lasik. Lasik.com is offering all MLS refs free Lasik and is offering a special $1,000 discount to our listeners at Lasik.com/thepostcincy. The Lasik.com network includes Lasik Plus Cincinnati, which has one of the world's top LASIK surgeons Dr. Marino. Schedule a free consultation at lasik.com/thepostcincy. That's Cincy with a Y. How else would you spell it? No caps, no spaces. So we had to pick one moment out. I didn't want to put Carter on the spot
Yeah.
in order to make him feel any worse than he would otherwise about, criticizing officials. I feel like he is, by being a team employee, he may get one of those FedEx envelopes in the mail that you hear so often about with a fine. And I don't know what they pay the writer, but I'm guessing he's a little less equipped to take the fine than maybe Pat, Chris, or one of the players is.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I already feel like we have like this target on our back from the whole ordeal with Pat. Was that last year or 2 years ago?
It's every year.
Yeah, if it's every year, it's just like I think it's probably been a memo has gone out to non-team employees, or non-playing employees that like keep your mouth shut on talking about the refs. Yeah. But hey, we didn't get that memo, and fuck the ref, dude. That was terrible.
The rivalry with Nashville may not be real, but the rivalry with pro referees, it exists forever. So
there was also another moment I wanted to bring up. So when Evander went off, and I would love your take on this, because in the stand there was a lot of confusion. So Evander goes off for an injury, and the ref makes him wait the 2 minutes because it wasn't a foul that occurred for the injury.
He was kicked in the foot, but they didn't call it.
They didn't call it. So he goes off for 2 minutes, and that's policy, correct? Like,
yes.
That's policy. But then I believe it was like 15 minutes later, a Nashville player went down in the box. They brought the medical team on. It was not a foul. He goes off. The ref waved him on instantly, and we were all losing our shit. Did I miss something there? Or
they didn't say anything about it on the broadcast, but like the life hack is you just claim it was your head, and as long as you claim it was head, as long as I claim it was a head injury, you can come right back on. Which is why I think that all players now should be trained to grab their head no matter what hurts.
Yeah, right.
It's like, ow, my leg, ow, but also my head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I can't emphasize enough as I roll in pain, grabbing my leg. My head is also injured. Please do not make me wait for 2 minutes.
Okay, it wasn't totally clear, I think, from our vantage point that it was a head injury, but I guess that makes sense.
Like I said, the rivalry continues.
Oh my God, I know.
So you are not originally from Cincinnati. I think it's mentioned on the podcast before. You hail from the great north of Cleveland right here.
Oh, boy, yeah.
Yeah, no, we won't hold that against you. It's actually good because we're looking for a perspective, and I was looking for a perspective about what it is that you find iconic about Cincinnati. Or what do you not find iconic about Cincinnati that other people in this town, maybe overrate or overstate? Let's start with the first part about that. When you think of Cincinnati, as this person who hadn't been from here, what was your impression before you came to Cincinnati to go to college?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess a little bit of a backstory of how I came here. So yeah, originally from Cleveland, came to Cincinnati by way of the University of Cincinnati. So came to study college. Was going to be an electronic media major, which is like broadcasting, producing. Trying to be like my good old buddy Mike Watts. Did not work out that well, so switched my majors. But and then just really fell in love with the city as I went to college and experienced Cincinnati through first time a young adult on his own, and liked it so much that I really haven't had any inkling to leave. I've been here for, my gosh, it's coming up on 15 years, which is kind of crazy because it feels like I'm pushing like equal ratio of Cleveland to Cincinnati, where and it's starting to feel that way. Like I really do kind of feel like, my sports allegiances will always still remain with like the Cleveland sports. I think that's just something that's been ingrained in me with my family. But in terms of like just connection to a city, like the ratio is absolutely shifted to Cincinnati in terms of just like feeling a part of the community. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I find iconic about Cincinnati. And I think for me, the biggest thing is just like, I think it's the perfect hybrid of big city, small city in terms of feel. And like, I know that's not like a specific thing, but like, that is like if someone asks me, why do I still live in Cincinnati, or why do I continue to live in Cincinnati? It's that it perfectly harmonizes that blend. And as I traveled to other cities and stayed in other cities and then been to other towns and even been overseas, I think Cincinnati does a really good job of capturing that spirit, that blend of, hey, we're a big time city that can punch above its weight class, but you don't lose sight of your neighbor. And so that's what comes to mind when I think of like Cincinnati. Obviously, there's a lot of specific things that I could point to that I just love about Cincinnati. Maybe we can get into that later, but like that's the overarching feeling I have about Cincinnati and why I love calling it my hometown now.
So, someone who didn't grow up here, doesn't have
Yeah.
a where'd you go to high school answer to the question. If you had to make a Mount Rushmore of Cincinnati things, what is on your Mount Rushmore of Cincinnati things?
So I feel like there are probably like two different like Mount Rushmore. There's like my personal one and then one that I would like give to like somebody outside the city. So we'll start with the one that's like I would give to somebody because I feel like I have a lot of niche ones that might not make someone else's, but
Even better.
Okay, well then maybe I'll do a blend. I think the first one has to involve the getting drunk and going to the Ludlow Clifton skyline at some point. Like that to me, like that's what I think of instantly when I think of Cincinnati is going to that specific skyline down on Ludlow, absolutely tanked and taking down a 4-way and 2 cheese conies. Like that's got something with chili has to be on there, right?
That's like that's the Anthony Bourdain recommendation. Like if Anthony Bourdain, God rest him, if he was coming to Cincinnati and we were like, where do you have to go? You have to get drunk and go to the Ludlow skyline, or go to Camp Washington Chili late at night, or go to Gold Star late at night. You've got to go get that experience. But like specifically that location in Ludlow is just the windows on the corner.
Yes.
It's almost like a little bit of a Boulevard of Broken Dreams or Nighthawks kind of vibe right there.
Yeah, and it's it's on Ludlow. It's a little bit out, like I think it's technically is like quote unquote on campus, but you're not like in the UC's like hub. You're on Ludlow. Ludlow kind of has its own vibe. The Esquire's right there. It's a really cool strip, and I just think like that whole area is like just such a vibe, and I really, really have spent plenty of iconic nights going to that skyline, drunk off my gourd, and just. Number two, I'm going to keep it cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, is opening day. I mean, like, I am diehard Guardians fan, and I got to say, like, what happens in this city on opening day is about as iconic as it can be. It fucking slaps, man. Opening day fucking slaps, and it's cliche. It's definitely going to be on most people's Mount Rushmore, but it's on there for a reason. It's so much fun. Wasn't able to make it down this year, but last year, truly one of like top 5 days in Cincinnati was like a beautiful day. Just getting off work early, going down to the parade, getting down to the banks, just posting up. We were at that new Irish bar down in the banks.
Oh yeah, the one that's over by closer to Paul Brown Stadium.
Yeah, like Taste of Belgium, like that strip right there. I cannot remember it. Maybe like the Red Leprechaun or something, whatever. But we just posted up, and we were just drinking Harps and Guinnesses and just having the time of our lives. So that's got to be number 2. Is that agreed?
That's agreed. It is the Red Leprechaun, by the way. So I was just looking that up. Okay. I was double checking that. No free plugs, but that is the Red Leprechaun right there.
Yeah, sorry, no free ads. My bad. Oh man. Okay, number 3.
Iconic Mount Rushmore from Shwy.
Iconic Mount Rushmore.
Cincinnati iconic Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. I am going to say it's spending time at either Alt Park, Mount Airy Park, maybe like French Park, but I would say Alt Park. I think Alt Park is the one that comes to mind. Is just like taking a hike through those back trails in Alt Park, getting up, getting the view. I think Cincinnati's whole park system is like super underrated and super iconic, at least to people that live here. I freaking love all the parks, and I love taking my dog for a walk. It's something that we especially in Cleveland, like there are metro parks in Cleveland. Cleveland is a lot more spread out, and I grew up on the east side of Cleveland, and so a lot of our trails are on the west side. So I never really grew up with like having like accessibility to like hiking trails and parks and like views of a city. Like I just think it's it's just so iconic to me. Like Eden Park in Mount Adams, like just honestly, man, like throw a dartboard at our parks like layout and just go see one of our parks and take a walk with somebody. I think that
sneaky good park to visit in Cincinnati is Alms Park. It's
Mount Lookout, right?
Yeah, Mount Lookout, Columbia, Tusculum, like that area around there. It's what's nice about Alms Park is that Alms Park directly overlooks Lunken Airport. And so there's a spot that you can go to if you're ever, this is for the people that are the younger crew here listening to the younger members of the 12s. If you're looking for a date and, maybe not the first date, but, something that you can do that's a little different that'll set you off and set you apart from all the other people that are swiping right on the various apps, pick up dinner somewhere, bonus points, you make your own dinner, take it down to Alms Park, sit out, and watch planes take off at Lunken Airport. No matter how old you get, it is still fun to watch airplanes take off. Never outgrow the fun of watching airplanes take off.
There's just something so magical. There's a path that circles Lunken, and there is a single bench that you can sit on and watch planes come in and land at Lunken.
Yeah.
And I am not afraid to admit that I've gone and sat on that bench and watched literally just like small freaking like private planes and, single engine airplanes land for like 30 minutes. And it's like the nerdiest old man thing I do, but it is so freaking cool. I love it.
That path also takes you right by the green on one of the holes on Reeves Golf Course right there. So you can go back and you can watch the Sunday Hackers playing after work and just booting the ball into the woods and blading the chip shots over the green. It's a good time if you're looking for some
someone like me do that.
No,
Reeves, man, if I torn up that terrain big time.
Yeah, no, I've contributed a lot of lost golf balls to the woods in that area. Yeah. So that's number three. The parks of Cincinnati. Number 4 on your Mount Rushmore of iconic Cincinnati.
I'm gonna kind of keep it like chalk here and go. I might throw in some honorable mentions, but for Mount Rushmore, I'm putting Oktoberfest on there, especially now that it's like, I think one of the like bravo moves of the last 5 to 10 years is moving that to why can't I think of it? Like Riverfront Park,
Sawyer Point.
Sawyer Point. That's Parks. Sawyer Point. I mean, talk about a dub. Moving it down there. I love Oktoberfest. I've gone every year. It's always around my birthday, so there's part of it. That's kind of part of it. My 21st birthday was at Oktoberfest, and as tradition, I go back every year with my friends, and it's kind of been something that we, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate, as you progress in your life and your friends, have a family, have kids, it's harder and harder to hang out. And for me, at least, Oktoberfest has become like a tent pole event that I get together with like my college friends and my buddies and our families, and we come down. It's something that you can bring the kids if you want to. The people that have kids can go, and the people that want to stay will stay out. So I got to put Oktoberfest on there. I think it's probably up there with opening day in terms of like drinking related days in Cincinnati that I have the most fun. And it is cliche, but like I said, it's cliche for a reason. So yeah. I'm putting it up there.
Love that. Yeah, it's what I like now in Cincinnati is that we're bookended now. You've got Oktoberfest in September, and then you've got Bachfest in the springtime. And I think between the two of those two events, both of those are incredible. I tend to lean more towards Bachfest for this reason, is that there are places where there are good Oktoberfests. I think, Cincinnati probably is the best one on this side of the Atlantic. I'm told that the one over in Munich might be a tad bit better. There are tentative plans in my friend circle. Well, not tentative. Like, I think it's closer to almost being confirmed at this point that we may be actually trying to go over to Munich for Oktoberfest this year, me and a couple friends, because we've never done it. But Bachfest is uniquely Cincinnati. That is something that is there's not a Bachfest in other cities, or if it is, it's celebrated at one bar by like one German place. But no, Oktoberfest is great. It is, and like you said, it's a tentpole event where you can circle it on the calendar months in advance and say, hey, we're going to be down for the Friday night of Oktoberfest or the Saturday afternoon of Oktoberfest. It's a sneaky good day drinking activity as well. You don't have to wait till the evening to go down. And it just the move to Sawyer Point was overdue, and I think it brings it closer in line to like what the festival needs to be.
Yeah.
You've got some honorable mentions. What'd you have? What were you thinking?
Honorable mentions, and these are like very specific to myself, but I find them uniquely iconic to Cincinnati. Number one is go catch a show at Stanley's Pub at
Hell yeah.
Post midnight. Go see the band that has the late set at Stanley's Pub. You will not be fucking disappointed. Take a couple shots of tequila and sit back and just enjoy. Man, I have seen some of the craziest, coolest bands at Stanley's Pub. And I think a lot of places, like local music is really kind of, I'm not like, at least like venues for local music have seemed to dwindle a little bit. And I think Stanley's Pub is just so uniquely cool. And it's like, it's grungy, it's dirty, but in the best way. Absolutely try to catch a show at Stanley's Pub at some point. Number two for me is go down the Little Miami River, canoe, and then get off and have a beer at Little Miami Brewing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my favorite summer activities. Of course, canoeing is, that's not something that's uniquely Cincinnati, but like for me, it's my favorite thing to do in the summer is canoe with my friends. And I love that you can get off and like get into one of, go to a brewery and have a beer, and then get back and then finish the ride.
So I tend to think that like with that one specifically, that if there is an iconic, if I can sort of like piggyback on that, I think what is iconic about Cincinnati is that there are so many activities that you can do in Cincinnati that also involve a brewery being adjacent to it. So like in other places in the world, like there are brewery districts or there's a couple breweries spread out around town. There are so many breweries in Cincinnati and so many good ones that, yeah, you can go to the brewery that also is on the river for doing canoeing. You can do the one that's on the bike trail up by Loveland if you're a cyclist, and you can go to like Narrow Path Brewing. You can do the brewery downtown and over the Rhine, one of like several, on your way to an FC Cincinnati match or to a Reds game or to a Bengals game, and incorporate that into that. Like no matter what activity you are trying to do, there's a brewery nearby, and you can incorporate like beer culture and whatever it is that's your specific niche in terms of like, oh, we're going to go play golf. Well, there's you want to play Reeves right there, like the Lunken Airport. Well, that's right. Big Ash and Streetside are right around the corner from both these places. And there's a place to do that in addition to the other activities that you're doing, which I think is kind of cool and kind of neat and kind of iconic, dare I say, about the Cincinnati area.
For sure. And then the last one I'll have as, for me, uniquely iconic is getting a drink in Covington, like at Molly Malone's, or you can even go to, I think Blinker's Tavern, just some over there, walk the Roebling Bridge, get a drink at Moorline. And like just walking the Roebling Bridge and just having a day where you're just walking either back and forth or just spending some time there, walking the Roebling to the other side. I used to do that all the time. I don't get downtown as much now that I've moved out into the suburbs. But that was one of my favorite activities, was just like literally just walking over that bridge and grabbing some drinks on one side of the river and the other side of the river. I think that's so cool that we kind of have access to both sides pretty easily. So that's on my personal. That's a personal Mount Rushmore of things I like to do in this city.
It's a good list. Love that. So the corollary to this question, it's kind of why I wanted to have you on as an outsider as well. What's on your Mount Rushmore, or if you don't have four and you just want to list off a few things, of people here say it's iconic, it just doesn't hit for me.
God,
like
okay,
the locals.
I have one, and I'll probably get flamed. I'm not a Zoo Lights guy, man. I just I don't get it. I'm also, and then I'll throw this in there. Not a WEBN fireworks guy either. Like I guess I just don't like lights.
Or like lights with a lot of people around you.
Yeah, it's just like, to me, especially with Zoo Lights, it's like it's more for kids, and when I don't have kids, so like it's honestly just been like I'm just like running, or like, people, just kids running around, and I'm just trying to like, I don't know. It's not for me. I don't really. I've done it a couple times. You know what? I understand that it's probably a great activity to bring the family. Not for me. Those are the first two that come to mind.
So the Zoo Lights thing in particular, it's too crowded, and I think that's the holds it back. Once you are there, if you get there, it can be nice. Like especially if you go on a nice night, You get a hot chocolate, you walk around. If you bring a flask in with you, you can Irish that up a little bit and have yourself a good evening. Enjoy responsibly. The life hack for the zoo lights is you go before sundown and you get into the park, you get into the zoo early, and then you're there already situated, parked, and then as the crowd gets more large throughout the evening, you dip as other people are coming in. So you're there at twilight and see the lights get turned on. It's like, if you're going to do it, that's the way to do it. I do like the zoo overall. Like, I think the zoo overall is great. Yeah, but I agree with your take on the zoo lights as well.
The zoo lights, I don't get, and look, hand up. It could be a me thing. It absolutely could be a me thing. I haven't walked away feeling quite energized from the zoo lights the couple times I've gone. Other than that, I'm trying to think of some other like staples that don't really do it for me. I'm not a runner, so the flying pig is not doesn't come to mind. As you can tell by this body built by Cincinnati chili, not
body built by Geta, not by running.
Right, body built by Geta. So I don't know what comes to your mind. You're the take guy. You're the take.
Right, but I'm deep.
I feel like I'm like, oh my god, am I really going to be opening myself up? I don't.
What about the east side west side thing? Where does that appear? How does that appear to you as an outsider that moved into this town?
I don't really feel it as much. Like I don't really feel the vitriol. I think a lot of people have enough going on in their own lives these days to worry about regional rivalries. I will say I think I feel it more when I talk to a West Sider than East Siders. I don't know if that has any merit to you. Like, do you feel like the West Siders take it a little bit more seriously than the East Siders, or do you feel like it's pretty?
Definitely. Like, I married a West Sider, so. My wife is from the West Side, and there are members of her family that when we go over and we we interact, it's like, oh, came all the way over from the East Side, and it's definitely it's like, no, we came from Oakley, man. It's like 10 minutes away. Yeah, right. It's like we didn't have to like show papers to get here or anything.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly. It's not like traversing the Oregon Trail. Like you didn't have to dodge dysentery to get over the.
Like I like the West Side. I'm a big West Side enthusiast. I think the West Side has some of the kitschiest parts of Cincinnati culture. I got accused of being a West Sider on the list that I generated online because I had the audacity to include things like the St. Ives Church Festival. Great time. It's a iconic part of Cincinnati culture. Or like like Trotta's Pizza, phenomenal. Everybody should eat there at least once. Mike's Mixed Wings, Wild Mike's.
Oh my god, Wild Mike's.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Wild Mike's, that could be iconic Mount Rushmore, Cincinnati, right there. Like, just Wild Mike. I freaking love Wild Mike's.
Yeah. So I guess the big question is Cincinnati, as someone who's come to this town from out of town, is Cincinnati iconic?
I think it is. And, I feel like it's a little bit tough for me because, like I said, I moved out when I was 18. And I've seen a lot of different places, but in terms of like where I've spent time, it really has been Cleveland and Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati is iconic. I go to bat for this city. I think Sundance absolutely swing and a miss by not trying to put it here. It's a central place. It's really accessible. At least I know that the public infrastructure is always going to be kind of feel like the big, black mark against a city like Cincinnati. And I get it. I am pro subway, pro.
There we go.
I have spent my time in Europe and gone, man, how cool would it be to have the ability to get on a train and just go somewhere. So I get that, but like I think it's iconic. I absolutely do. There's no reason why a city like Cincinnati can't be iconic. And every single time I have somebody come and visit me from out of town, they always say the same thing. Wow, Cincinnati's a lot better than I thought.
Right.
And it's, I think, a perpetually underrated city, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that because that energy is palpable in the city, and I think it's good. I think it's good that we feel like our city's fucking underrated, and it gives us a little chip on our shoulder. I like that.
Yeah.
So, I would say it's iconic. I think Cincinnati's iconic to me for sure.
Shwy, other reason I wanted to have you on is that I want to give you an opportunity to plug something I'm going to be attending. This is going to be one of the rare instances where, me, your boy, FC Cincinnati superfan, will not be in attendance this coming weekend at the game because I'm going to be attending a show. You want to tell the people a little bit about the show you guys have this weekend?
Yeah, I would love to. And massive, thanks for giving up the FC on especially coming off the win in Nashville. I mean,
Right.
the vibes were high. So we are going to be playing a show over at Radio Artifact. And this show is a special one for us. It's a 10-year celebration of our first album that came out, obviously in 2015. And it's kind of a, I think we're treating this as we've grown and evolved and we've added new elements. We're writing new songs, we released a new album. Our band's evolving, and I think we can kind of feel like we're entering a new chapter, but we wanted to take some time and kind of, celebrate our roots and in a sense maybe say a little bit of a goodbye to that part of our band. We've come such a long way, and I think we wanted to take this opportunity to do a kind of big celebration of our original music that we did. So we're gonna be playing over at Radio Artifact. It is one of I talked about how local music venues are kind of dying a little bit, but what they've done with Radio Artifact is one of the coolest things I've seen. They've taken, I'm sure you're familiar with Urban Artifact, the brewery, and Urban Artifact used to be a great venue for local music and still is, but the team over at Radio Artifact turned their basement into a live recording studio and totally professional outfit. It's sealed off, it's soundproof. The equipment that we played a show there, and we were just blown away. We were blown away by not only the quality for the musicians, but the environment that it creates for the audience is really, really intimate and pretty hard to replicate. And so we're super stoked to be playing there again. I think you were at our first.
We were,
at the show there, and
loved it. It's an incredible space.
Yeah, I was talking to you after. I'm just this is not not normal. This is so cool that we have something like this. So we are going to be featuring some special guests, playing with some people on stage. We're actually going to be playing an hour and a half. We're going to do the first set's going to be our first album all the way through, and then the second set's going to be a mixture of some new songs, some covers. We're bringing people up on stage. It's going to be a whole thing, and we're really just going to celebrate with everybody in there, kind of where we are as a band. I think it feels a little self-indulgent, but we were kind of talking. It's sometimes you need to just have some self-dubs and do some celebration and just have the people that have been along there, for the ride this whole time, just spending some time with them and just kind of, just having a night full of awesome music. Lydia Shea is another local artist who's going to be opening the night, and she's unbelievable. And I know it's the same time as an FC Cincinnati game, but we don't go on until 9. So if you wanted to maybe catch a first half, come for the second half, we'd love to have you. But if not, no worries. And just super excited, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, we'll put a link in the description to the show, and I say I will, since I'm recording this solo. I'll put a link to the description, link to the show in the description. So if you're interested and want to join, like Shwy said, their tickets are available through the Radio Artifact website. It is an incredibly cool venue if you've never been, and even if you want to come and catch the show after the first half of the FC game, always an option. Hopefully, Evander and Denke score 4 or 5 goals in that first half, make it a laugher, and everybody can get out to the show. But I will be there. Ms. Chief will be there as well. It's going to be a good time, I'm sure. Shwy, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your vote that Cincinnati, the city, is in fact iconic. It validates my life choices and the choices of my parents to bring me here when I was very little. So, on behalf of the entire family, thank you very much for that.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and please don't flame me, Postcast listeners. I tried my best to capture the iconic nature of Cincinnati. I am an outsider still, so please be kind to me.
All right. Thank you very much, Shwy. And with that'll do it for the Postcast. I guess it's self-indulgent that I get to kick it to myself to let us out of here. So, fuck Columbus.
thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast, which is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com for all of our written content as well as links to our social media. You can follow us on Twitter, and as well you can join us on our Discord server. You can find links to that server both in this episode description as well as on our website. That is where most of our conversations are going on. We have a lovely community there talking about FC Cincinnati, MLS, anything and everything else and everything in between. We also want to give a huge thanks to Jim Trace and the Makers for providing all of the music you've heard throughout this episode. They're an amazing local Cincinnati band. Again, more information about them is in the description of this episode. And if you enjoyed what you listened to, and you've made it to the end, so I'm going to assume you liked it, or you just can't reach your stop button, please like us, review us, subscribe to us wherever you are getting your podcasts. That is going to be really, really helpful. But more importantly, share this with a friend. A personal recommendation helps spread a podcast so much further. So please share this if you know somebody in your life who's an FC Cincinnati fan, an MLS fan, somebody that you think would enjoy this. Pass it on over. Thank you so much again for listening. It blows me away that people continue to listen to us, and thank you so much again.